Chapter 404. The moment Du Kai opened his mouth, the heart-seeking spikes that were as thin as a cow's hair had already arrived before Su Zimo. They were too close. At that moment, it was already too late for Su Zimo to dodge. It was even more impossible for him to withdraw Blood Quencher to defend. Poof! Du Kai was struck in the chest first. A gigantic wound appeared, almost splitting his upper body into two with blood gushing out. However, Du Kai did not seem to feel any pain as his eyes danced with excitement as he laughed menacingly. Even if I die, I'll pull you, kill. Du Kai's words were interrupted by a loud roar and he could no longer continue. A boom sounded in Du Kai's mind as though he was struck by lightning. His ears buzzed incessantly and the piercing pain was unbearable as his mind went blank momentarily. If there was a mirror in front of Du Kai right now, he would be able to clearly see that his ears were bleeding and the corners of his eyes were cracked. Thunderclap kill. It was a sound secret skill that Su Zimo controlled. Although it could not compare to the power of blood chi or spirit arts, it could produce miraculous effects in an instant. Initially, the power of Su Zimo's thunderclap kill was far from reaching this level. However, ever since he unlocked his 7 orifices, the power of his mouth and tongue orifice increased exponentially and the power of thunderclap kill reached a level that could not be ignored. Furthermore, the two of them were too close and Su Zimo's roar caused Du Kai to bleed from his 7 orifices on the spot. What was even more frightening was yet to come. Su Zimo's roar did not only utilize the power of his mouth and tongue orifice, it also contained the immense power of his organs. The moment he opened his mouth, a powerful air current was released. The heart-seeking spikes that were about to strike Su Zimo's face stopped instantly and retreated at an even faster speed. Du Kai's pupils constricted violently as his vision was covered by a dark blue light. Poof! 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 The sound of sharp weapons piercing flesh echoed. The heart-seeking spikes pierced Du Kai's face and vanished instantly without even a single drop of blood. Du Kai stumbled backwards. Before he had even taken a few steps, Du Kai's face had already turned pitch black. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth as he collapsed stiffly, dying on the spot. Du Kai had been playing with poisons since he was young. Countless cultivators had died to his moves. But he never would have thought that one day, he would actually die under his own ultimate skill. Su Zimo landed and let out a sigh of relief. The scene just now also made him break out in a cold sweat. If not for Thunderclap kill, the one lying on the ground right now would be him, Su Zimo. Su Zimo turned around and looked at the stunned poison sect cultivators outside the Grand Hall. Smirking coldly, he charged into the crowd with Blood Quencher in hand. Poison sect had already crossed Su Zimo's bottom line by coming to Ning. The moment he stepped into this place, he had no intention of letting any of the poison sect cultivators escape. Ji Qingtian's guess was right, the reason why Su Zimo was here was to eradicate all of them. Su Zimo wanted to eliminate all dangers around Ning, even if there was only the slightest possibility. Night Spirit's strength was unfathomable. At the very least, Su Zimo did not dare to claim victory easily in a life-and-death battle. However, ever since he entered the ancient battlefield, Su Zimo had only entrusted Night Spirit with a single task, to protect Ning. No matter how dangerous the situation was, there was no need for Night Spirit to take action. That alone was enough to tell how important Ning was to Su Zimo. The massacre continued. Although Su Zimo was alone, the remaining poison sect cultivators had already lost all will to resist and fled in all directions. City East, Glass Palace. Tang Yu had an anxious expression and her forehead was covered in sweat. As she flew on her sword, she shouted, "Fellow Taoists, listen to my orders later on. Prioritize saving fellow Taoist Su and try not to fight the poison sect cultivators head-on." "That's right." Feng Man added, "We're here to save someone, not to fight." With that said, Feng Man consoled softly, "Little Yu, don't be anxious. Fellow Taoist Su is strong and the heavens help the worthy. Perhaps we can make it in time. Even though she said that, in reality, Feng Man no longer harbored any hope. In her opinion, they would only be collecting Su Zimo's corpse if they rushed over now. Thank you, Sister Man, Tang Yu forced a smile and thanked her. Instantly, all the factions in Xiantian City were alarmed and rushed towards Poison's sect in the city's south. Chapter 405. In the skies, dozens of figures flew on their swords one after another. The man in the lead wore luxurious robes and was handsome. His eyes were crystal clear and he exuded an outstanding aura that was eye-catching. This was the commander of Glass Palace for this expedition, Pei Chunyu. The group from Glass Palace traveled at a moderate speed and were about to arrive at Poison's sect at the city's south. At the same time, a group of cultivators arrived on their swords opposite Glass Palace. Dressed in black robes, they were Malevolent Earth sect cultivators. The distance between the two major sects was not too far and they could even look at each other from a distance. Report. Right then, a Glass Palace cultivator sped over with a horrified expression. Unable to conceal the shock in his eyes, he gulped and said with difficulty, Senior Brother Pei, Poison Sect, is gone. Oh, Pei Chunyu replied without paying too much attention. After a brief pause, Pei Chunyu frowned and snapped out of his daze. His gaze turned sharper as he asked slowly, what did you say earlier on? Repeat yourself. The other Glass Palace cultivators looked at the person in shock as well, thinking that they had heard wrongly. The person laughed bitterly and shook his head. Poison sect is gone in the ancient battlefield. Almost all of their cultivators were massacred by Su Zimo. Everyone from Glass Palace was shocked. How is that possible? Almost at the same time, Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang were shocked as they hollered. The two of them exchanged glances across the air. A Malevolent Earth sect cultivator stood in front of Shui Yang as well. It was clear that he had just received the news as well. Realizing that they had lost their composure, the two of them took a deep breath to compose themselves. Pei Chunyu gripped his fists and narrowed his eyes, asking with grit teeth, where's Dukai of Poison Sect? Poison Sect's traps. Poison Sect's 7 lethals. What about the 100-odd cultivators of Poison Sect? The Glass Palace cultivator hesitated for a moment before sighing gently. They're all gone. They were all gone. These 3 simple words revealed a trace of helplessness, some shock, some fear, and endless emotions. Poison sect was one of the 5 heretical doctrines. Even their Valurium Palace was unwilling to provoke them, yet they were destroyed by a single person just like that. Everyone's jaws dropped as they stood in midair on their flying swords. Their eyes were wide open and their mouths were agape. The 3 words echoed in their minds and they couldn't regain their senses for a long time. The cultivators of Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth sect went silent. In this vast sky, the atmosphere was inexplicably stifling. A moment later, a Glass Palace cultivator could not help but ask cautiously, Senior Brother Pei, are we still going to watch the show? Initially, they had followed Pei Chunyu with the intention of witnessing Su Zimo's tragic death. Now that the front line had sent back this news, everyone was already thinking of retreating. Pei Chunyu's eyes flickered with uncertainty. After pondering for a moment, the killing intent in Pei Chunyu's eyes intensified as he said in a deep voice, Go. It is precisely because of this that we must go and take a look. At the same time, on the other side, the demon son of the Malevolent Earth sect, Shui Yang, made the same decision. The two of them had the same thought. Poison sect was one of the 5 heretical doctrines after all and had more than 100 cultivators under them, including a few 7 Meridian Foundation establishment cultivators. Even if Su Zimo managed to wipe out Poison sect completely, this was going to be a tough battle as well. Right now, even if Su Zimo wasn't severely injured, he was probably at his weakest and might even be poisoned. This was the best opportunity to kill him. Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth sect were immortal and fiend sects respectively. Since ancient times, immortals and fiends were at odds and would naturally not join forces openly. However, at that moment, Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang exchanged glances with a tacit understanding. Let's go. Pei Chunyu gave the order and led the Glass Palace cultivators forward, speeding towards Poison Sect at the city's south. On the long street north and south, Tang Yu and Feng Man led many cultivators under their sects and sprinted, arriving near Poison Sect before long. Up ahead, there were layers of cultivators densely packed and most of them were watching from the outside. No one knew what those cultivators saw, but they could not conceal the shock in their eyes. When they saw Tang Yu and the others rushing over, they opened up a path hurriedly. Suddenly, a rotund figure squeezed through the crowd and ran over, asking with a delighted expression, "Senior brother Ji, sister Leng, you guys are here too." It was little Fatty who had just joined Tomb Sect and Shi Jian who joined Puppet Sect stood beside him as well. Both of them did not change much after more than 10 days. Little Fatty seemed to have gained some weight while Shi Jian was still in a daze. Tomb Sect and Puppet Sect were both part of the 5 heretical doctrines and were in the city's south to begin with. Naturally, the two of them were the first to rush over when something happened to Poison Sect. "How's it like inside?" Ji Qingtian asked softly with a grim expression. "Tisk, tsk, tsk." Little Fatty smacked his lips and chuckled in delight. "You guys came too late and didn't see it. Hee hee. Tragic, that's really tragic." "Ah." When she heard that, Tang Yu's eyes dimmed and she muttered to herself dejectedly, "Is it still too late? It's my fault, I should have guessed it. I could have stopped you." Tang Yu was so worried that she did not notice little Fatty's expression and tone. However, Ji Qingtian and Leng Ro frowned. Logically speaking, if something were to happen to Su Zimo, little Fatty should be more anxious and indignant than anyone else. Why was he gloating over Su Zimo's misfortune? Little Fatty was stunned when he saw Tang Yu's reaction as well. At the side, Feng Man frowned slightly and hugged Tang Yu in her arms. Glaring at little Fatty, she hollered, "Shut up, Fatty." Little Fatty was even more stunned. Was I wrong? Little Fatty could not figure it out and turned to Shi Jian, asking, "Silly Jian, what's going on?" Shi Jian was equally confused at the side. Scratching his head, he looked at Ji Qingtian and the others and asked seriously, "Brother Ji, why did you guys bring so many people here to watch the show? Those who don't know might think that you guys are going to fight." Ji Qingtian could not help but roll his eyes and ask, "Is Zimo all right?" "He's fine, he's alive and kicking," little Fatty replied. "Ah." Tang Yu bounced up from Feng Man's embrace and blinked with tears still lingering at the corners of her eyes. Then, you said that it was tragic." "It was truly tragic, I meant that Poison Sect was tragic." Everyone was speechless and froze on the spot, unable to understand what was going on. Right then, a Poison Sect cultivator drenched in blood ran out from the front. He had a horrified expression as he staggered towards them. Swoosh! Before he could get far, a cold light flashed behind him. With a poof, an arrow pierced through the man's back and came out of his chest, stained with blood. The man's eyes dimmed and he took a few more steps forward before collapsing dead. Instinctively, everyone raised their heads and looked in the direction where the arrow came from. At the entrance of Poison Sect's residence, a green-robed cultivator strode out with a calm expression and clear eyes. In fact, there wasn't even a single trace of blood on his body. He had just put away the moon-white bow in his hands into his storage bag calmly. At the same time, everyone from Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth Sect arrived just in time to witness the scene. Chapter 406. Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang arrived in midair and looked down from above. Poison Sect was in a mess with many corpses strewn all over the ground. Fresh blood flowed and emitted heat, it was practically a living hell beneath their feet. Poison Sect was truly destroyed. How could this be? The same question flashed through their minds at the same time. The strength that Su Zimo displayed in the bloody battle on the long street was not enough to destroy Poison Sect. Could this man have broken through once more in the short span of 10 days, and his strength had increased tremendously? A hint of fear flashed through the depths of their eyes. Of course, what shocked them even more was Su Zimo's current condition. His aura was stable and his expression was normal. How did he look like he had just gone through a huge battle? This should have been a battle that was even more difficult and dangerous than the bloody battle on the long street. However, neither of them could see any signs of fatigue on Su Zimo's face nor any injuries on his body. Could this man be putting on a false front and was actually at the end of his rope? Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang glared at Su Zimo, wanting to see through his facade. However, after a moment, both of them gave up. They could not see through him. When this man calmed down, he looked like a frail scholar. It was only the moment he attacked that they could sense the terrifying power that burst forth from his body. It was even more ferocious than ancient ferocious beasts. Pei Chunyu took a deep breath of air and turned to look at Tang Yu and the others. When he saw such a huge lineup, Pei Chunyu wanted to retreat. No matter what Su Zimo's current condition was, it would be difficult for him to make use of this opportunity to kill the latter. Of course, that did not mean that Glass Palace was afraid of Elixir Yang sect. In terms of direct combat strength, the four unorthodox groups could not compare to the Immortal, Fiend, and Buddhist sections. Right now, the Elixir Pool sect ruins had yet to appear and they had not even seen the treasures. There was no need for them to fight to the death before that, and it would be easy for others to take advantage of them. Without batting an eyelid, Pei Chunyu led everyone from Glass Palace away. On the other side, the fiend heir of Malevolent Earth sect, Shui Yang, made the same decision expressionlessly and returned to the west of the city. In reality, Su Zimo was truly not faking it. His physical body had reached lesser mastery in the orifice clearing section, so this consumption was nothing to him. After Du Kai died, this battle became a one-sided slaughter. Su Zimo made use of the speed of his movement technique and ethereal wings to chase after them. No one was his match. Su Zimo took out his moonlight bow and shot down the cultivators who managed to escape a little further. In that battle, more than 100 poison sect cultivators were annihilated without a single survivor. Little Fatty, Shi Jian, and the others were fine. Feng Man, Dan Yang sect, Chiguramon, and the other cultivators were completely dumbfounded. Previously, Tang Yu had repeatedly reminded them to prioritize saving people when they charged into the battlefield and try their best not to clash head-on with the poison sect cultivators. But the plan was not as fast as the changes. By the time everyone arrived, it was already too late for them to clash head-on with the poison sect cultivators. Even though Tang Yu thought highly of Su Zimo's strength, she could not believe that he could single-handedly topple poison sect, one of the 5 heretical doctrines. Su Zimo strolled leisurely and arrived before Tang Yu and the others, smiling gently. "I've caused you guys to worry. I'm fine." In that short moment, Tang Yu's emotions changed multiple times. Initially, she was worried about Su Zimo. But when she saw that Su Zimo was fine, she felt as though a burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Immediately after, Tang Yu felt indignant and glared at Su Zimo angrily. It was rare for her to reveal the demeanor of a young girl and look extremely charming. Tang Yu only felt that this person before her was extremely detestable for causing her to worry and lose her composure time and time again. "Why you? Didn't you say that you were going out for a walk?" Initially, Tang Yu wanted to reprimand Su Zimo properly. However, when she saw the latter's smile, her words changed and sounded more like a small complaint between Dao companions. Feng Man looked at Tang Yu in surprise. Although they had known each other for many years, she had never seen Tang Yu speak to anyone in such a tone. Su Zimo replied, "I was walking around the city and somehow, I ended up here. The more I thought about what you said, the more I felt that it made sense. That's why I rushed in and destroyed Poison Sect." Everyone looked at Tang Yu in shock, unable to conceal the shock in their eyes. Su Zimo's words made everyone instinctively think that Tang Yu was the reason why Poison Sect was destroyed. However, Tang Yu was confused as she asked, "What did I say?" Su Zimo replied, "You told me that killing a few poison sect cultivators wouldn't help and they might even take revenge on us. So, you destroyed poison sect right away?" "Yes." Tang Yu's face darkened and she nearly went crazy on the spot. "What I said was for you to not provoke poison sect. You, on the other hand, directly destroyed them." Tang Yu took a deep breath of air and composed herself. In less than 2 hours today, she had already lost her composure multiple times and could not continue conversing with this person before her. Turning around, Tang Yu looked at Feng Man Man at the side and said apologetically, "Sister Man Man, I'm sorry for making you come here for nothing." "It's fine." Feng Man Man smiled and brushed away a few strands of hair in front of her forehead. She said in a flirtatious manner, "I've only found out about your strength today, young Master Su. You've got a good eye, Xiao Yu." Tang Yu had already regained her composure and smiled when she heard that. "Let's go back to North City." On the way. Suddenly, Tang Yu recalled something and turned around. "Right, I haven't had the chance to ask. Did you gain anything from your trip to the Saber Mountain Spirit Sea, fellow Taoist Su?" Feng Man Man and the others turned to look at Su Zimo as well. "Yes." Su Zimo nodded with a smile. When she heard Su Zimo's ambiguous reply, Tang Yu knew in her heart that he must not have obtained the Saber Emperor's inheritance. Furthermore, in everyone's hearts, there was no one who could obtain the Saber Emperor's inheritance and they already had a preconceived impression of it. If this was any other time, Tang Yu would not have asked so as to avoid embarrassing Su Zimo. However, for some reason, Tang Yu wanted to see Su Zimo's embarrassed expression today. A mischievous look flashed through her eyes as she continued asking, "Tell me then, what did you gain? Could you have obtained the Saber Emperor's inheritance?" That was a clear question. "That's right." Su Zimo was still smiling and his tone was natural as though it was the truth. When she heard that, Feng Man Man pouted her lips and thought to herself, although this person has some capabilities, he's not too honest and wants to save face. Tang Yu pursed her lips and smiled, shaking her head without asking further. Just as they were about to arrive at North City, a cultivator sped over from the city gates and shouted the moment he entered, "Something big has happened. After 1,000 years, someone has obtained the Saber Emperor's inheritance once more. The Saber Mountain has collapsed and the Spirit Sea has dried up. The Saber Mountain Spirit Sea has completely disappeared from the ancient battlefield." Tang Yu's group slowed down and suddenly went silent. Chapter 407. That news was enough to cause a stir in the entire ancient battlefield. In fact, even after leaving the ancient battlefield, it would cause quite a stir in the cultivation world. Next, everyone should naturally start discussing who obtained the Saber Emperor's inheritance. However, everyone fell silent at that moment. That was because someone had coincidentally admitted that he was the one who obtained the Saber Emperor's inheritance. If those two matters were separated for a longer period of time, no one would be able to link them together. But now that someone had just admitted it, the news spread through the city. Instinctively, everyone looked at Su Zimo with strange expressions. Could it be true? That thought flashed through everyone's minds and they rejected it instinctively. The Saber Mountain Spirit Sea was formed in the ancient era. Throughout history, countless paragons have appeared but only a single person managed to pass the test and obtain the inheritance. It was easy to imagine how difficult it was. It was not an exaggeration to call that fiend sect cultivator 1,000 years ago a peerless paragon. Could it be that such a peerless heaven's favorite was among them? It was a strange and surreal feeling. "Everyone, I'll go check on Xiaoning." Right then, Su Zimo said and bid farewell to everyone with cupped fists before leaving. Seeing that Su Zimo was far away, Feng Man Man suddenly asked, "Xiao Yu, could what he said be true?" "I don't know either." Tang Yu smiled bitterly and shook her head. In the following period of time, the news of Poison Sect's destruction was completely overshadowed by the news of the Saber Mountain Spirit Sea's disappearance. Almost everyone in Xiantian City was discussing the identity of the cultivator who obtained the Saber Emperor's inheritance. Everyone had their own guesses, but none of them had an accurate answer. Among the many rumors, some people said that a green-robed cultivator obtained the inheritance. If this piece of news fell into the ears of others, they might not have felt anything. However, when Tang Yu and the others heard it, the first thing they thought of was Su Zimo. However, during this period of time, Su Zimo had been in seclusion and Tang Yu did not have the chance to verify it. As time passed by, the atmosphere in Xiantian City turned increasingly tense. In the past few days, many unfamiliar faces with decent strength had appeared in the city. The seal of Elixir Pool's sect was about to dissipate. Before this, all the major forces in Xiantian City lived in harmony. However, once the seal was broken and the precious treasure was revealed, it would definitely lead to an earth-shattering chaotic battle that would dye the sky red with blood. On this day, a Danyang sect disciple knocked on Su Zimo's door, asking him to gather at the front hall. Su Zimo sat cross-legged on the bed with blood quencher placed before him. He exhaled deeply and opened his eyes, revealing a pair of eyes that were as clear as water with a tranquil expression. Su Zimo knew that unless it was absolutely necessary, Tang Yu would not disturb him. Now that someone was knocking on his door, it was most likely because there was a huge commotion in the Elixir Pool sect ruins. Su Zimo landed on the ground and followed the disciple. They soon arrived at the front hall. At this moment, the front hall was already filled with people. At a glance, there were close to 1,000 people. Su Zimo finally understood what a great sect was. Before entering the ancient battlefield, the emperor said that given the strength of the great Zhou dynasty, they could only teleport 50 cultivators at most. However, some of the top factions of Tianhuang mainland could also send thousands of cultivators into the ancient battlefield. As one of the 4 unorthodox groups, although Elixir Yang sect's forte was not in combat, they had a strong foundation and had powerful mighty figures holding down the fort. That was why they could send more than 1,000 cultivators in. The difference between them was like heaven and earth. When she saw Su Zimo enter, Tang Yu nodded as a form of greeting. Uncle Yang, who was standing behind her, actually took the initiative to smile at Su Zimo as well, out of character. Ji Qingtian and Xiaoning had arrived long ago. Suddenly, Su Zimo sensed an obscure hostility and could not help but frown. He turned and looked over without concealing anything. Yan Jun. More than 10 days ago, Yan Jun was sent flying by a slap from Su Zimo and fainted. In reality, Su Zimo had shown mercy and Yan Jun was not severely injured. With the nourishment of many elixirs from Elixir Yang sect, he recovered within a few days. When he saw Su Zimo looking over, Yan Jun turned around hurriedly and avoided his gaze. There was a hint of avoidance and fear in his eyes. Everyone. At that moment, Tang Yu's voice rang out. The noise in the crowd gradually subsided and finally quieted down. Tang Yu said in a deep voice, "In 2 days at most, the seal of Elixir Pool's sect will be released. At that time, there will be a fierce battle waiting for everyone. Everyone, be prepared." Elixir Pool's sect is located in a valley 5 kilometers south of Xiantian City. Due to the terrain of the valley, it is shrouded in fog all year round and visibility is extremely low. That is also the reason why the Elixir Pool sect ruins were only discovered today. That was extremely precious information and everyone listened attentively. The release of the seal of the Elixir Pool sect ruins does not mean that we will be able to arrive safely. According to our junior brother's investigations, there are many terrifyingly strong pure-blooded ferocious beasts, ancient remnant beasts and extinct ancient living beings residing in this valley. The lifespan of demon beasts is much longer than that of humans. Due to the rules of the ancient battlefield, these pure-blooded ferocious beasts are unable to form inner cores. However, their strength is already at the peak of Foundation Establishment realm and they are extremely frightening. Su Zimo frowned slightly. Through those 2 simple sentences of Tang Yu's, he could tell the danger behind it. The situation was not to be underestimated. Firstly, although they had the advantage in numbers with close to 1,000 cultivators, they could not compare to the ancient living beings and pure-blooded ferocious beasts that had lived in the ancient battlefield for countless years and had never left. Secondly, this was the depths of the ancient battlefield. Notwithstanding the pure-blooded ferocious beasts, even the most ordinary ancient living beings were extremely frightening. Thirdly, the environment. The environment was extremely unfavorable for them. The intelligence of pure-blooded ferocious beasts was not inferior to humans at all. The reason why they rarely attacked cities was because they knew that humans had the advantage of geography and they could not take them down. But this time round, the tables were turned. The demon beasts had the advantage of geography. The various factions did not know much about the situation in the valley nor the terrain. However, the demon beasts that had lived here for countless years knew everything clearly. Apart from that, there was an even more frightening reality: night. Tang Yu said, "There's a fog in the valley and our vision is obstructed. It's difficult for us to unleash our combat strength to its limits. If we enter night, our vision will shrink once more." At that moment, if a pure-blooded ferocious beast launches a beast stampede. Although Tang Yu did not continue, everyone felt chills run down their spines. After pausing for a moment, Tang Yu continued, "Therefore, no matter what, we have to enter the vicinity of the Elixir Pool sect ruins before the first night. Once night falls, none of us will be able to see the sun the next day and we will be buried in the valley forever." Chapter 408. The test of the ancient battlefield was finally about to arrive. If they were to hide in Xiantian City and cultivate, it would be easy for them to survive a year. However, the cultivators who entered the ancient battlefield were all geniuses of the younger generation of the various sects, and all of them had ambitions. They were not here to cultivate in the ancient battlefield, but for the opportunities, treasures and many lost cultivation techniques and secret skills. Elixir Pool sect was a famous super sect in the glorious era of the ancient era. Now that such a sect was finally revealed to the world after being buried by time, there must be countless treasures and opportunities waiting for everyone within. Everyone, the major factions of Xiantian City, are gathered this time round. There are even sects such as Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth sect. There's bound to be a bloody battle. Tang Yu said in a deep voice with a stern expression, "Elixir Yang sect can give up on the other treasures if things don't go our way. However, we have to fight for the many elixir formulas of Elixir Pool sect. Many of those elixir formulas might have been lost. The moment they appeared, it would definitely cause a huge commotion in Tianhuang mainland and Elixir Yang sect status would naturally rise. Everyone, go back and wait. Prepare yourselves and be prepared to set off at any moment." After Tang Yu said that, the cultivators dispersed and returned to their respective residences. "Fellow Daoist Su, fellow Daoist Ji, please hold on." Tang Yu called out to Su Zimo and Ji Qingtian. After everyone dispersed, the few of them sat down. "Have the two of you heard of sealers?" Tang Yu went straight to the point and asked. Su Zimo and Ji Qingtian were slightly stunned as they exchanged glances and shook their heads. The two of them did not know as much about the ancient battlefield as disciples of supersections. Tang Yu had already expected this, so she wasn't surprised. If Su Zimo had not even heard of the Saber Mountain Spirit Sea, it was only logical that he did not know about sealers. Tang Yu explained, apart from sending genius disciples of Foundation Establishment Realm into the ancient battlefield, some of the major sects of Tianhuang mainland will also send some perfected Jin Dan here. What? Su Zimo and the others' expressions changed. Su Zimo had once heard from Demonist Ji that the ancient battlefield was a fragment left behind from the great battle of ancient times. It formed its own dimension and was divided into elementary, intermediate and advanced levels. They were currently in the elementary primordial battlefield. The three levels of the primordial battlefield were differentiated according to the stability of each space. The space in the elementary ancient battlefield was the most unstable. If the energy fluctuations were too strong, it would cause dimensional tears to appear and devour cultivators, banish them into the void and rip them apart. After countless years of probing, this critical point was the Jin Dan realm. As long as the cultivator's cultivation did not exceed the Jin Dan realm, it would not cause a spatial crack. On the other hand, the space in the intermediate primordial battlefield would be even more stable. Perfected Jin Dan would be able to enter freely and attack as he wished. As long as his cultivation level did not exceed the nascent soul realm, he would not trigger a spatial tear. The primordial battlefield was a world of its own and had a sense of self-protection. It could repel cultivators whose strength exceeded a certain threshold. For example, perfected Jin Dan was unable to enter the elementary primordial battlefield. That was more like a rule that could not be defied. But now, Tang Yu's words had overturned Su Zimo's previous understanding. Tang Yu explained, for major sects with strong foundations that have been passed down through the ages, they have mighty figures with godly means. They can deceive everyone and seal perfected Jin Dan's cultivation temporarily before sending him into the primordial battlefield. As for those perfected Jin Dan cultivators, they are sealers. When they heard that, both Su Zimo and Uncle Qingtian's eyes were filled with shock. Such means were above the rules of heaven and earth and could indeed be considered as godly. However, right after, Ji Qingtian was puzzled and asked with a frown, even if we deceive everyone and send sealers in, they will only be able to release the strength of a peak foundation establishment cultivator. What's the point of going through so much trouble? Tang Yu smiled without replying and looked at Su Zimo with a testing intent. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and his eyes flickered before he replied slowly, "It's more of a deterrence, I guess." When he heard that, Uncle Liang nodded silently with a hint of admiration in his eyes. "That's right," Tang Yu said, "not only are sealers only able to release the strength of a peak foundation establishment cultivator, they are perfected Jin Dan cultivators and have the ability to release the strength of a Jin Dan cultivator. However, the price they have to pay is to be devoured by the dimensional tear and die on the spot. Therefore, most of the time, sealers are used to intimidate others and will not release the strength of a Jin Dan cultivator unless they have no other choice." Ji Qingtian asked, "How do we differentiate between sealers then?" Tang Yu did not reply and looked at Su Zimo with a pursed smile. It was clear that she wanted to test him again. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly recalled that night in the Great Zhou dynasty. Those sealers should be perfected Jin Dan cultivators who are nearing the end of their lifespans, old men in their twilight years. Although sealers would not release the strength of a Jin Dan cultivator under normal circumstances after entering the primordial battlefield, the moment they did, it would mean their death. With the danger of dying at any moment, only perfected Jin Dan cultivators who were nearing the end of their lifespans would agree to enter. That night in the Great Zhou dynasty, two perfected Jin Dan cultivators ignored the ban of the capital and attempted to assassinate Su Zimo despite knowing that they would die. That was because they were nearing the end of their lifespans and did not have many years left to live. Tang Yu's mouth was agape in shock. She had not expected that Su Zimo would be able to reveal the secret right away. Su Zimo continued, "Since sealers have a deterrent effect, they should follow beside the leaders of the various sects to protect them as well." The moment he said that, Su Zimo's gaze shifted to Uncle Liang behind Tang Yu and he smiled gently. "Uncle Liang, you should be a sealer, right?" "Ha, impressive." Uncle Liang stroked his beard and laughed, praising. In reality, Su Zimo had already guessed Uncle Liang's identity. Typically speaking, those who entered this place were all young elites and paragons. It was truly strange for a gray-haired old man like Uncle Liang to appear in the ancient battlefield. Tang Yu said, "Because sealers are old, their stamina is weak and their blood qi is weak. Even if they don't release their Jin Dan strength, they rarely attack." Pondering for a moment, Ji Qingtian asked again, "Since that's the case, why don't they send more sealers in? A force like that would be enough to sweep through the ancient battlefield." "They won't," Tang Yu shook her head. "Firstly, there aren't too many perfected Jin Dan cultivators in their twilight years. Secondly, sending sealers in has already destroyed the balance of the ancient battlefield. If a huge battle between perfected Jin Dan cultivators breaks out and cracks appear in space, this world will become even more unstable and might even be destroyed. The outcome of the destruction of space would be for all living beings within it, be they alive or not, to be reduced to dust and return to chaos. In order to prevent the ancient battlefield from being destroyed, the various major sects have an agreement that they are only allowed to send a single sealer in each time. Pausing for a moment, Tang Yu looked at Su Zimo. I want to remind you that Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang both have a sealer by their side. Chapter 409. Tang Yu knew that Su Zimo wanted to fight for the perfect meridian unlocking elixir. However, with the appearance of the perfect meridian unlocking elixir, Pei Chunfeng and the others would definitely fight for it. At that time, Su Zimo would not only have to face Pei Chunfeng and Shui Yang, but also the sealers behind them. Tang Yu's meaning was clear, she was trying to persuade Su Zimo to stop. Even with Su Zimo's current strength, he could fight against Pei Chunfeng, Shui Yang and the others. Even if the sealer did not release his Jin Dan realm strength and merely released the strength of a peak foundation establishment cultivator, that was equivalent to an 8 meridian foundation establishment cultivator and was more than enough to suppress Su Zimo. No matter how one looked at it, Su Zimo had no chance of winning. If he persisted and angered the sealer, Su Zimo would definitely die if he released his Jin Dan realm strength. Su Zimo smiled and did not comment. No matter what, the perfect meridian unlocking elixir was something he had to fight for. This was related to his future achievements. No matter who it was, no one could stop him. A moment later, Tang Yu continued, right, there's something else. The Elixir Pool Sect Ruins expedition is uncertain and extremely dangerous. Why don't we let Xiaoning stay in Xiantian City? That way, she'll be safer. To Tang Yu, Xiaoning was only at late-stage foundation establishment and wouldn't be of much help even if she followed them to the Elixir Pool Sect Ruins. There's no need. Let her come along. Su Zimo shook his head. Don't worry. With Night Spirit protecting Xiaoning, she won't be a burden to everyone. Under normal circumstances, Xiaoning would indeed be much safer in Xiantian City. However, Su Zimo recalled the mysterious elixir cauldron on Xiaoning and decided to bring her along. No matter what dangers they encountered, Su Zimo believed that with his and Night Spirit's strength, they would be able to ensure Xiaoning's safety. After chatting for a while more, Su Zimo and the others dispersed and waited quietly for news of the Elixir Pool Sect Ruins. A day later, it was close to dusk. Suddenly, there was a violent fluctuation 5 kilometers south of Xiantian City and beams of light shot into the clouds before dissipating gradually. The seal of Elixir Pool sect had dissipated. Many cultivators came out of seclusion within Xiantian City. Countless figures soared into the air and rode their swords towards the valley 5 kilometers south. Many sects, large and small Xiantian City, were on the move. And many sections. And many sections. And many sections. Because Su Zimo and the others were long prepared, they quickly gathered at the front hall when they saw the phenomenon. Tang Yu looked at the sky above her head. Her gaze was serious as she hesitated. Su knew what she was. It was it. Was right, it was it. If they could not break through the line of ferocious beasts and reach the Elixir Pool Sect Ruins before nightfall, all of them might die in the valley. Sect S was to be. 2. Sect were. And sections and to be left, to it. To be. Junior sister, let's go. Glass Palace and the others have already set off. It'll be too late if we don't go now. Yan Jun urged from the side. Tang Yu sighed internally and waved. Let's go. Everyone rode their swords into the air and sped towards the south. Among the crowd, Yan Jun's gaze landed on Su Zimo. A killing intent flashed through the depths of his eyes before disappearing quickly. At the same time, Su Zimo sensed something. Without turning back, his expression turned cold as he slowed down and arrived beside Yen Jun. Su Zimo did not even look at him and merely said indifferently, "Let me give you a piece of advice. You better not have any designs on me." At that moment, Yen Jun felt as though his heart had stopped beating, as though someone had gripped it. How did he notice? Yen Jun was so scared that his face was pale and sweat covered his forehead. He did not understand why Su Zimo noticed his killing intent the moment he glanced at him. Yen Jun's legs were trembling slightly. He wanted to control them, but they were out of his control. Yen Jun took a deep breath of air and pretended to be calm. He looked at Su Zimo and forced a chuckle. "Why, fellow Taoist, who are you talking to? That slap previously only knocked you unconscious. However, your head will be smashed the next time." After pausing for a moment, Su Zimo continued, "Oh, right. That's not a threat, it's a reminder." Su Zimo still did not look at him. After saying that, he sped up slightly and returned to the front of the group. In a short span of a dozen breaths, Yen Jun felt as though more than 10 years had passed. He had just taken a trip to the gates of hell and was drenched in sweat. The wind chilled him. Yen Jun lowered his head deeply and did not dare to look at Su Zimo again. At that moment, Yen Jun's expression was menacing and his eyes were filled with madness. He roared internally, "Su Zimo, you humiliated me in front of everyone the previous time and you're even threatening me today. This misty valley will be your final resting place." Everyone traveled on their swords. From afar, they could see the thick fog that filled the valley ahead. It was gray, surging and unpredictable. The fog valley was like a gigantic wild beast in the night with its mouth wide open, waiting to enjoy a Taotai feast. Given everyone's speed, they arrived at the distance of 5 kilometers in no time. At the entrance of the valley, Glass Palace, Malevolent Earth Sect and many other sects had just arrived. Outside the crowd, there were some itinerant cultivators who were waiting for the major sects to charge in and attract the attention of enough ferocious beasts before blending in. "Little you, you're here." Chiguramon's Feng Man went up and greeted her with a nod. Su Zimo could clearly tell that Feng Man did not look relaxed as well. The two of them discussed for a while before Tang Yu stood out and cupped her fists in the direction of Glass Palace. She raised her voice. "Fellow Taoist Pei, it's already late today. In less than 2 hours, the sky will turn completely dark. It's truly too risky to barge into the valley now. Why don't we return to the city to rest for now and charge in again tomorrow morning?" In reality, her words echoed the thoughts of many cultivators. The valley was extremely large and no one knew the exact location of Elixir Pool Sect. If they could not find the Elixir Pool Sect ruins before nightfall, everyone would most likely be doomed. However, since everyone had already come here, they were worried that after they retreated, someone else would beat them to it and they would be the first to obtain it. Pei Chunyu nodded slightly. "You're right, fellow Taoist. I don't have any objections." However, Pei Chunyu did not continue as his gaze landed on the Malevolent Earth Sect disciples. The fiend heir of Malevolent Earth Sect, Shuiyang, scoffed. "If you're afraid of death, don't barge into this valley. Return to Xiantian City obediently and I guarantee that you'll be safe a year later." What arrogance! How can a mere valley stop the conquest of Glass Palace? Many Glass Palace disciples hollered. Shuiyang snickered coldly and waved his hand, saying in a deep voice, "Follow me into the valley." Before his sentence was finished, Shuiyang took the lead and led everyone from Malevolent Earth Sect into the ancient valley, vanishing into the fog in the blink of an eye. Glass Palace naturally did not want to fall behind. Pei Chunyu said in a deep voice, "Enter the valley." The moment those two sects made their move, it truly affected all the factions that were hesitating outside the valley. All of them moved at the same time and swarmed into the valley. Chapter 410. Greed would cause one to lose their rationality. At that moment, the cultivators that surged into the valley were all excited and their eyes shone. All they could see was the treasures of Elixir Pool's sect, and instinctively, they ignored the dangers within the valley. None of them wanted to fall behind others. Elixir Yang's sect did not move. Standing at the front, Tang Yu frowned slightly with a hesitant expression. Her decision concerned the lives of the 1,000-odd cultivators behind her. In less than 2 hours, the curtain of night would completely fall. At that time, every cultivator's senses would be weakened in the fog of the night. However, that would not have much of an impact on the ancient living beings, mutants and ferocious beasts. Young master, let's hurry and enter the valley. Stop hesitating. If someone discovers the Elixir Pool sect ruins first and sweeps away all the treasures, we'll have to return empty-handed. That's right. Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth sect have already entered. There are a few thousand of us combined. How can we not defeat a bunch of beasts? When he heard that, Su Zimo sneered internally and shook his head gently. Even if they had tens of thousands of cultivators, how could they compare to the number of demons that lived here all year round and multiplied, let alone the fact that they only had a few thousand cultivators? Be it in terms of timing or location, they had no advantage at all. A moment later, Tang Yu finally compromised when she heard the commotion of the cultivators behind her. Sighing helplessly, she waved her hand. Let's enter the valley. At the back, everyone from Elixir Yang's sect charged into the valley. According to their previous plan, the 1,000-odd Elixir Yang's sect cultivators would form a conical formation. Those with the lowest combat strength, such as Su Xiaoning and some elixir refinement masters, would stand in the middle of the formation. The outer perimeter of the conical formation would be formed by cultivators of Elixir Yang's sect's battle hall. At the tip of the conical formation, the sharpest point would be formed by Su Zimo, Ji Qingtian and Yan Jun. Su Zimo was in the middle while Ji Qingtian and Yan Jun were half a body's distance behind, supporting him from the left and right. The moment they entered the valley, Su Zimo summoned 18 supreme-grade flying swords that hovered around him, ready to strike at any moment. The visibility is so low. That's right. I can only see about 100 feet away. As soon as the cultivators entered the valley, they were already discussing in low voices. Ji Qingtian was at 7 Meridian Foundation establishment and focused his gaze before nodding. I can only see about 100 feet or so. Zimo, how about you? More or less. Su Zimo said ambiguously. In fact, after Su Zimo had opened his 7 apertures, his eyesight had become extremely strong. Even in this fog, he could see things a few hundred feet away. If the fog had little effect on the demonic beasts, then it had no effect on Su Zimo at all. Many cultivators groped their way forward. Not long after, the roars of ferocious beasts began to reverberate in the valley, mixed with many heart-wrenching screams. These voices made one's hair stand on end, making one feel uneasy. Has someone already encountered a dire beast? Probably. In the crowd, some cultivators were discussing in low voices. With their line of sight obstructed and the constant roars of exotic beasts ringing out from the valley, everyone's initial hot-bloodedness gradually cooled down, and they became somewhat restless. Suddenly, Su Zimo's voice sounded. Everyone, be careful. There are large numbers of ancient blood mosquitoes around us. Everyone was shocked. Blood mosquitoes were the most common type of spirit beast in Tianhuang mainland. They were only the size of a fist and loved sucking the blood of other living beings, including humans. Although they were weak, the ancient blood mosquitoes were much more terrifying. The ancient blood mosquitoes were living beings of the ancient era and had long gone extinct in Tianhuang mainland. They were extremely large and were twice the size of humans. When they flapped their wings, they would let out a buzzing sound. Although the ancient blood mosquitoes' bodies were relatively weak, their mouthparts that sucked the blood of other living beings were equivalent to their killing weapons and were extremely terrifying. Their mouthparts were long and slender, sharp and indestructible. They could pierce through the flesh of many living beings with ease and could suck the blood of an ordinary spirit demon dry within dozens of breaths. What was even more frightening was that the ancient blood mosquitoes lived in groups. The moment the ancient blood mosquitoes ventured out to hunt, they would swarm over in swarms. Even remnant beasts that could not dodge in time would be sucked into corpses in the blink of an eye. The expressions of many cultivators present changed when they heard the words ancient blood mosquitoes. If they had truly encountered the ancient blood mosquitoes, they would be extremely lucky if half of the 1,000-odd cultivators were left alive. However, after a while, none of them caught sight of the ancient blood mosquitoes and they could not help but mutter internally. Where are the ancient blood mosquitoes? Bloody hell, it was a false alarm. What kind of person is that? How can he say something like that so casually? Many cultivators could not help but grumble. Yan Jun crossed his arms at the side and watched the commotion gloatingly. Tang Yu frowned slightly. She knew that Su Zimo would not joke around. However, after waiting for a while and seeing that there was still no movement around, Tang Yu could not help but ask, fellow Taoist Su, are there really ancient blood mosquitoes? Of course. Su Zimo nodded. The moment he said that, everyone heard a faint buzzing sound from the flapping of wings that was getting clearer. Pest. Everyone's expressions changed starkly. This time round, no one doubted Su Zimo's words. However, no one could understand how Su Zimo managed to discover the ancient blood mosquitoes so early on. Tang Yu narrowed her eyes and her gaze flickered as thoughts raced through her mind. By the time Su Zimo gave the warning, the ancient blood mosquitoes had already flown a few thousand feet away. Could it be that Su Zimo could see the ancient blood mosquitoes that were a few thousand feet away? Tang Yu was shocked when she thought of that possibility. Before she could think further, a large swarm of ancient blood mosquitoes had already appeared before everyone. In fact, Tang Yu could even see the scarlet eyes of the ancient blood mosquitoes and their slender mouthparts that were stained with blood. Many of them could not hold it in any longer and roared, summoning their spirit weapons and attacking the dense swarm of ancient blood mosquitoes. Instantly, spirit light shone brightly in the fog and sword chi was like frost. Clang! 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 The flying swords of many cultivators pierced over. However, the ancient blood mosquitoes moved their mouthparts gently and collided with the flying swords, causing the sound of metal clashing. Many flying swords were repelled and returned empty-handed. The distance between both parties shortened once more. Flying swords could not break through the defense of the ancient blood mosquitoes. Many cultivators were flustered and hurriedly summoned their spirit talismans and released their spirit arts to stop the ancient blood mosquitoes temporarily. However, there was a limited number of spirit talismans and spirit arts were extremely draining, they could not be released frequently. After defending against the first wave of attacks of the ancient blood mosquitoes, they still had to use their flying swords to defend against their enemies. Poof! 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 Right then, the ancient blood mosquitoes in the void at the front were sliced in half by flying swords and fell one after another. Tang Yu focused her attention and saw that it was Su Zimo controlling 18 supreme-grade flying swords. Without forming a sword formation, they caused immense damage to the ancient blood mosquitoes. Right then, Su Zimo said in a deep voice, "Don't let the ancient blood mosquitoes get close to you. The mouthparts of those demon beasts are extremely lethal and indestructible. They can even defend against flying swords. Everyone, there's no need to fight them head-on. Make use of the agility of your flying swords to circle to their sides or backs and kill them easily." When they heard that, everyone was invigorated and attacked according to his instructions. Indeed, it was effective and countless ancient blood mosquitoes were killed, staining the skies with blood. Chapter 411. There were way too many ancient blood mosquitoes and they swarmed over like a swarm of locusts. Even if they knew the weakness of the ancient blood mosquitoes, it was inevitable that there would be openings in their defenses and some of them would get close to them. That slender, blood-stained mouthpart was sharp and sharp. When it stabbed into a cultivator's body, it would leave a bloody hole and turn the cultivator into a skeleton before long without any flesh or blood left. As the group sprinted forward, cultivators started to die and empty spots appeared. Under Tang Yu's command, the group shrank and became more cohesive, filling up the empty spots to prevent the conical formation from being torn apart. Although they were both at 6 Meridian Foundation establishment, Su Zimo's spirit energy was much richer than the cultivators of Elixir Yang Sect's battle hall and was comparable to 7 Meridian Foundation establishment cultivators. Coupled with his supreme-grade flying sword and ethereal sword, Su Zimo's 18 flying swords at the front caused immense damage and were invincible. None of the ancient blood mosquitoes could get close to them. Blood mists appeared continuously and the wails of the ancient blood mosquitoes could be heard. With Su Zimo taking on most of the attacks, the pressure on Ji Qingtian and Yan Jun lessened significantly as the group pushed forward continuously. Even without turning back, Su Zimo could sense that there were cultivators falling to the ground one after another in the group behind him. In this foggy valley, anyone who was severely injured would die. Since those cultivators chose to enter the valley in pursuit of Elixir Pool's sex treasures, they would have to endure the dangers they were facing right now. Su Zimo was no saint and did not have the energy to save everyone. He could only try his best to ensure that the formation at the front was not messed up and lead the group forward continuously. An hour later, everyone finally broke out of the encirclement of the ancient blood mosquitoes. The surrounding ancient blood mosquitoes gradually thinned and were killed by the flying swords. Everyone, take a rest and treat your wounds. Consume elixirs and recover your stamina. After breaking free from the encirclement of the ancient blood mosquitoes, Tang Yu finally heaved a sigh of relief and said loudly. When he heard that arrangement, Su Zimo frowned and did not comment. Many cultivators stopped in their tracks and consumed elixirs to bandage their wounds, panting slightly with pale faces. Everyone looked at Su Zimo, who was at the forefront, with complicated expressions. Previously, none of the Elixir Yang sect cultivators understood why Tang Yu offended the 4 mounted bandits in order to recruit Su Zimo. It was only at this moment that everyone realized how terrifying Su Zimo was. After this great battle, Su Zimo's expression was as usual, calm and composed. Compared to their state, it was simply the difference between heaven and earth. Tang Yu, Uncle Liang, and the others could see it even more clearly. If not for Su Zimo carving out a path of blood at the front, they would have lost at least half of their cultivators. But now, they had only lost slightly more than 100 cultivators after escaping the encirclement of the ancient blood mosquitoes. After a while, Su Zimo saw that everyone's wounds had been treated and they had consumed the spiritual pills. He came to Tang Yu's side and said in a low voice, "Let's hurry up. We can't stay here for long." There was less than an hour before the sky turned dark. For everyone from Elixir Yang sect, time was extremely tight. The longer they stayed in the valley, the more dangerous it would be. Furthermore, it was only a group of ancient blood mosquitoes earlier on. There were no traces of remnant beasts or mutated beasts. Su Zimo had a feeling that once night fell, pure-blooded ferocious beasts would definitely appear. At that time, it would be a nightmare for all the sects and cultivators in the valley. Tang Yu nodded and was about to speak. Suddenly, Yan Jun sneered, "Su Zimo, you have a strong stamina and can continue on your journey. However, you've got to consider the feelings of others." Yan Jun's voice was extremely loud, as though he was saying it intentionally for others to hear. When many cultivators heard that, they looked at Su Zimo with displeasure in their eyes. When she saw the expressions of the other cultivators, Tang Yu hesitated as well. Yan Jun said loudly, "Everyone, there's no need to rush. A little more time won't make any difference." Su Zimo smiled and did not say anything else. Suddenly, as though he sensed something, Su Zimo's eyes flashed coldly as he spun around and looked towards the back of the formation. "What's wrong?" When Tang Yu saw Su Zimo's strange expression, she asked hurriedly. Before she finished her sentence, the ground at the back of the cone-shaped formation suddenly trembled and gradually turned soft, showing signs of collapsing. It was as though some terrifying living being was about to break out of the ground. "Hurry, let's go!" Su Zimo shouted. Tang Yu realized that something was amiss as well and shouted hurriedly, "Everyone, follow me and leave this place quickly." Rumble. Boom. The ground at the back suddenly collapsed and dark red tentacles as thick as buckets extended from the ground, dragging the cultivators one after another into the depths of the ground. Earth Dragon. It's an Earth Dragon. Uncle Liang's expression changed as he exclaimed. Earth dragons were not dragons and lived in the depths of the ground all year round. They resembled anacondas but had no scales on their bodies. Instead, they had circles of dark red threads and did not have eyes. They were extremely sensitive to light and vibrations on the ground. They had a round, bloody mouth on their heads with circles of menacing fangs. As they squirmed, they could mince living beings into minced meat with ease. The most frightening thing was that earth dragons had extremely strong regenerative powers. Even if they were sliced into a few pieces, they could recover to their original state as long as they entered the ground to recuperate. Any living being that was dragged into the depths of the ground by an earth dragon would be doomed, even ancient remnant beasts would not be able to escape. Although Su Zimo had warned them beforehand, most of the cultivators at the back scoffed and were completely unprepared. Some of them were even seated on the ground with their legs crossed. The ground collapsed and those cultivators were dragged into the ground by the earth dragon. They only had time to let out a tragic cry before falling silent. Some of the cultivators soared into the air hurriedly. Before they could attack, they were devoured by the earth dragon, spewing blood everywhere in an extremely tragic manner. Some of the cultivators summoned their flying swords hurriedly and sliced the earth dragon into two. However, the earth dragon did not die and was still able to unleash immense killing power even with half of its body. The ground was stained with blood and was scarlet. Hurry and run. Hurry and run. Hurry and leave this place. A series of shouts could be heard in the chaos. The cone-shaped formation was activated once more, but it was already a little messy. Under Su Zimo's lead, they sprinted towards the depths of the valley. After fleeing for a full 15 minutes, the cultivators finally broke free from the pursuit of the earth dragon and gradually slowed down. Most of the cultivators were drenched in sweat with fearful expressions. That escape had taken a huge toll on everyone's mental and physical stamina. Even Ji Qingtian's face was covered in a thin layer of sweat. Su Zimo was still the same as ever. His eyes were clear and his aura was steady. His stamina was like the boundless starry skies and the deep oceans with no end in sight. Everything that had happened just now seemed to be nothing to him. Tang Yu looked at the remaining Elixir Yang sect cultivators with a sorrowful expression. Elixir Yang sect only lost slightly more than 100 people after the huge battle with the ancient blood mosquitoes. Almost 200 cultivators were buried here just because they were delayed on the spot. Recalling Su Zimo's suggestion previously, Tang Yu felt even more guilty. She was at least half responsible for the deaths of those 200 cultivators. If she had been more decisive, perhaps. Chapter 412. Many cultivators glared at Yan Jun with unfriendly expressions. If he had not made the decision on his own, those 200-odd fellow sect members might not have died. Feeling guilty, Yan Jun coughed gently. I didn't do it on purpose either. I merely wanted everyone to rest a little more. Some cultivators could not hold it in and sneered, "Humph. That's easy for you to say. More than 200 fellow sect members died here because of a single sentence from you. That's because they weren't strong enough. If they're afraid of death, they shouldn't have followed us into the valley. Senior brother Yen, we're all from the same sect. How could you say something like that? Enough." Seeing that the atmosphere in the crowd was getting out of hand and that the quarrel was getting more and more intense, Uncle Liang shouted angrily, interrupting the quarrel. Tang Yu was frustrated and frowned slightly, waving her hand. Everyone, please be quiet. Just now, I made the wrong decision. Taking a deep breath of air, Tang Yu came beside Su Zimo and asked softly, fellow Taoist, what should we do next? We can only continue on our way and find the elixir pool sect ruins as soon as possible so that we can escape the threat of the demon beasts in the valley. Alright, everyone continued forward at Tang Yu's command. Before long, the fog ahead rumbled and an azure feathered eagle flapped its wings a few thousand feet away. It sped over at an extremely fast speed and its eyes shone with a chilling killing intent. An ancient remnant beast. After sprinting through the valley for close to 2 hours, an ancient remnant beast finally appeared. With the cover of the fog, the other Elixir Yang sect cultivators could not see the azure-feathered eagle at all. However, Su Zimo had noticed it long ago with his sharp eyes. Condense. Su Zimo split out 6 flying swords and sped through the air, leaving behind streaks of sword chi that formed a hexagonal sword formation that shone brightly. It was extremely difficult to kill an ancient remnant beast with just sword-wielding alone. In order to conserve spirit energy, Su Zimo did not use the candlelight sword formation right away. Instead, he conjured a sword formation and pointed forward, causing it to tear through the air. Many cultivators were confused when they saw Su Zimo attack all of a sudden. However, not long after, the sorrowful cries of geese sounded from the depths of the fog ahead. After a short while, the sword array flew back. Su Zimo's expression was normal, as if nothing had happened. As the group ventured deeper into the valley, large groups of ancient living beings no longer appeared. However, ancient remnant species began to appear. Most of the time, Su Zimo would have already killed the ancient remnant beasts before they could even get close. As they continued to venture deeper, everyone was shocked but not in danger. However, their expressions became more and more serious. The sky gradually darkened. Everyone's field of vision narrowed again. In the dark and empty valley, everyone's hearts became incomparably oppressed and uneasy as they smelled the thick smell of blood in the air. The ruins of the Elixir Pool sect had yet to be found. This meant that they would have to travel through the night. Not long after, night finally fell, and the surroundings were pitch black. Originally, they were able to see 30 m away, yet now, this range had shrunk to 10 m. Unknowingly, the surroundings suddenly quieted down. There were no chirps of birds, no roars of beasts, not even the screams and shouts of cultivators. It was as if in an instant, all the demonic beasts had hidden themselves and disappeared without a trace. It was like the calm before the storm. It was eerily, and terrifyingly silent. Under Su Zimo's lead, the group continued forward and could even hear their own thumping hearts. Everyone stepped on withered branches and leaves, letting out a rustling sound that was especially ear-piercing. What's going on? Why are there no demonic beasts at all? Finally, someone could not withstand the pressure and panted slightly, asking with a trembling voice. Tang Yu was a little afraid as well. In this dark night, she could even smell the aura of death. Right now, the only thing that could calm her down was the back view that was not broad but was tall like a mountain. It was as though their hope would never be extinguished as long as that figure did not fall. The darkness before them was filled with the unknown and danger. However, Su Zimo's footsteps did not stop at all as he continued forward. Suddenly, Su Zimo stopped in his tracks and his deep voice sounded. Although it was calm and composed, his words shocked everyone. Everyone, prepare for a fierce battle. The beast stampede is about to arrive. Beast stampede. Everyone's hearts skipped a beat when they heard that. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and looked over with a cold glint in his eyes as he said slowly, furthermore, it's a beast stampede made up of ancient remnant beasts. Ah! What? The crowd was in an uproar. A single ancient remnant beast was enough to give many cultivators a headache. If it was a beast stampede made up of ancient remnant beasts that blanketed the skies and charged over, who in the ancient battlefield would be able to defend against it? Which sect would be lucky enough to survive? Now, I go back. Is it too late? Finally, a cultivator could not withstand the pressure and asked with a quivering voice with a hint of sobbing. A series of tremors could be felt from the ground, as though a massive army was galloping. Even if they could not see clearly, everyone could sense the ferocious aura coming from the front. It was too late. That person already knew the answer without Su Zimo's reply. The situation that they were most worried about had finally arrived. Furthermore, it was even scarier than they had imagined. The ground quaked even more intensely. Many cultivators clearly knew that there were countless remnant beasts charging over at this moment. However, the scariest thing was that they could not see anything at all under the shroud of the night fog. Some cultivators could not take it any longer and collapsed to the ground in a slump as the ground quaked. Their minds broke down completely as they cried helplessly. In the face of death, cultivators were no different from mortals. They were equally petty, powerless, and had no dignity at all. What should we do? Tang Yu looked at Su Zimo and asked instinctively. Su Zimo replied indifferently, "Of course, we have to welcome it. Of course, we have to welcome it." Although it was a few simple words, they revealed a fearless and condescending aura. Everyone, including Tang Yu herself, was thinking about how to survive and escape. However, Su Zimo was thinking about going against the current. Tang Yu's heart skipped a beat as she turned around and looked at Su Zimo's side profile. Even though Su Zimo's side profile was a little blurry in the night, his eyes were still bright like two stars in the night sky that shone with a resplendent glow. As though he sensed something, Su Zimo glanced sideways and asked with a faint smile, "Is there a way out?" Tang Yu was stunned. That's right, was there a way out? When the beast stampede formed by the ancient remnant beasts surged over, they no longer had a way out. Even if they turned around and fled now, they would definitely not be able to escape the pursuit of the ancient remnant beasts. Everyone, I know that all of you are in despair right now. However, this is a test of life and death. There's only a single outcome for those who are fearful, cowardly, death. Su Zimo's voice sounded with determination and strength. Since we no longer have a way out, we can only charge forward with the sword in our hands, carve out a path of blood. Chapter 413. Rumble. Boom. Rumbling thunder sounded from the front as though thousands of horses were galloping. Many cultivators could not see it clearly. However, Su Zimo could see dust billowing ahead as many ancient remnant beasts charged over with endless killing intent. There was an extremely agile frost leopard that exuded a chilling aura and had frost on its fur. There was a muscular scarlet flame bull that charged with its head lowered and a pair of horns that burned with red flames. There was a moon concealment eagle that spread its wings and stirred the clouds, covering the full moon. There was also a massive ghost rat that resembled a wild boar with menacing fangs. Every single demon beast in the beast stampede was an ancient remnant beast. Groar. Many demon beasts let out a series of roars that shook the world and sent shivers down one's spine. Those who can't keep up, pray for yourselves. With that said, Su Zimo withdrew a blood-red saber from his storage bag slowly. The saber buzzed and let out a tragic stench of blood. Su Zimo stood at the front of the group and was about to take on the first wave of the beast stampede head-on. It was also the wave that had the strongest impact with a torrential momentum. Before the beast stampede arrived, the faces of many cultivators had already turned incomparably pale. Ah! Right then, Su Zimo wielded Blood Quencher and strode forward in huge strides, howling into the skies. This howl pierced through metal and cracked stone. It was long and resounding, and it even suppressed the roars of the numerous mutated beasts. Up ahead, the night sky surged and the figures of demon beasts that resembled fiend gods appeared one after another. They had encountered them. In the face of those towering ancient remnant beasts, Su Zimo's group was incomparably insignificant like ants. However, a torrential aura burst forth from Su Zimo's body and he was not disadvantaged against the aura of the beast stampede. Su Zimo waved Blood Quencher. The saber shone brightly with a bedazzling spirit light, resembling a blood sun that emitted thousands of beams of blood light. Swoosh! The sound of waves surging could be heard from Blood Quencher, rumbling like thunder with a majestic aura. Some cultivators had already closed their eyes and given up on resisting. However, at this moment, this person seemed to see a scene in front of his eyes. On the boundless sea, thousands of huge waves rolled up. They were vast and majestic, but they were split into two by a breathtaking ray of light. Countercurrent of the 5 moves of sea calming. Uncle Liang's expression changed upon seeing this. He exclaimed, "Saber force." He was Jinren Jin Dan and had seen many things. He looked at it carefully and could not help but reveal a suspicious expression. He murmured, "This saber technique, could it be that the rumors are true?" Boom! The beast stampede collided heavily with Su Zimo. At the front was the scarlet flame bull with its thick hide and sharp horns. Before it could even get close, it was sliced into two by the blood beam released by Blood Quencher. The incoming beast stampede that seemed like it could flatten everything was cleaved apart by Su Zimo's Blood Quencher with the momentum of a countercurrent. This saber was too terrifying. Not only did he confront the beast horde head-on, he even split the beast horde apart. Wielding Blood Quencher, Su Zimo continued pushing forward. His bloodline was already circulating slowly within his body. Su Zimo's eyes shone brightly and his black hair danced without any wind. The aura he exuded was even more ferocious than many ancient remnant beasts. Many cultivators followed hurriedly. Tang Yu took a deep breath of air and shouted, "Everyone, do your best to protect yourselves. Don't let the ancient remnant beasts break your formation. Don't stop in your tracks." Apart from Su Zimo, the other 6 Meridian Foundation establishment cultivators did not have any secret skills as trump cards and it was difficult for them to threaten the ancient remnant beasts in the valley. Up ahead, Su Zimo had been slaying the ancient remnant beasts the entire time, carving out a path that was drenched in blood and filled with corpses for everyone. As long as they did not die against the attacks of the ancient remnant beasts and followed behind Su Zimo, they would have a chance of survival. However, even with all the cultivators defending with all their might, it was difficult to defend against the ambush of the ancient remnant beasts. In the fog of the night, everyone's vision was limited to about 10 feet. For the ancient remnant beasts, a distance of 10 feet could be covered in an instant. The moment everyone caught sight of the ancient remnant beasts, they were already before them and it was already too late for them to summon their flying swords or conjure their spirit arts. At that moment, many cultivators could only rely on defensive talismans to tide through the first wave before defending again. However, there were even more cultivators who were dragged away by the ancient remnant beasts and torn into pieces in the blink of an eye before being devoured. With Su Zimo charging at the front, Ji Qingtian and Yan Jun did not feel much pressure. From time to time, Yan Jun's gaze would land on Su Zimo's back with a cold glint. All of a sudden, a frost leopard pounced towards him from the side. Before it even got close, Yan Jun felt a bone-chilling intent and his limbs turned cold. After all, Yan Jun was at 7 Meridian Foundation establishment and was completely capable of defending with his sword. However, Yan Jun's heart skipped a beat and he lowered his body, as though his legs had given way. Although he almost fell, he managed to dodge the frost leopard's pounce. Initially, Yan Jun was standing behind Su Zimo on the right. However, at that moment, Yan Jun dodged and Su Zimo's back was exposed to the frost leopard. This was equivalent to Yan Jun letting in an ancient remnant beast into the crowd. The ancient remnant beast missed and the one closest to it was Su Zimo. Without hesitation, the beast reached out with its meaty paws and pressed down on Su Zimo's shoulders, extending its sharp claws like daggers. Opening its bloodied mouth, the frost leopard bit down viciously on Su Zimo's neck with a cold aura. From the moment Yan Jun dodged to the moment the frost leopard bit down on Su Zimo's neck, everything happened in the blink of an eye. By the time the cultivators in the crowd realized what was happening, it was already too late. Ah! Tang Yu's expression changed starkly as she exclaimed. In an intense bloodbath as such, many cultivators could barely protect themselves. How could they spare the effort to help others? Furthermore, there was no one who could save Su Zimo at this distance. Su Zimo's back was facing the frost leopard. As though he was oblivious, he continued slashing forward with his saber. Just as the frost leopard's bloodied mouth was about to land on Su Zimo's neck, Su Zimo's head was suddenly flung backwards. With a loud clang, it collided heavily against the frost leopard's teeth. Blood flashed. The frost leopard's teeth were shattered. Immediately after, Su Zimo retreated half a step and channeled all his strength, gathering it on his back before leaning backwards. Bang! The massive body of the frost leopard was sent flying, exploding into a blood mist in midair. All the cultivators who saw that were completely stunned. An ancient remnant beast was smashed into meat paste by a human. Who would have believed it if they had not witnessed it for themselves? Yan Jun's eyes were widened and his mouth was agape, filled with disbelief. But right now, everything was completely different from what he had expected. How could this be? This doesn't make sense. Yan Jun's mind was in a mess. Before he could resolve his confusion, Su Zimo suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned around. Yan Jun's heart skipped a beat and he felt chills run down his spine. Chapter 4:14. What are you trying to do? Yan Jun's heart was flustered and his voice was trembling slightly. He forced himself to remain calm and explained, I didn't do it on purpose. It's just that my legs went soft and I almost fell. That beast took advantage of the situation and entered. Tang Yu and the others only saw the frost leopard pouncing towards Su Zimo but did not know what happened. When they heard that, everyone frowned. There was nothing wrong with Yan Jun's explanation. However, just now, if Su Zimo had reacted any slower, his neck would have been snapped by the frost leopard. Su Zimo did not reply and his expression was cold with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Suddenly, Yan Jun felt as though he had nowhere to hide and all his thoughts were seen through by Su Zimo. Why you can't kill me? I'm the only 7 Meridian Foundation establishment cultivator of the Battle Hall. Su Zimo, don't let your emotions get the better of you. Yan Jun's gaze was evasive as he panted slightly in panic. 2 ancient remnant beasts lunged forward silently. As though he had eyes on the back of his head, Su Zimo swung Blood Quencher in reverse without even looking. A blood beam burst forth and killed the 2 ancient remnant beasts on the spot. Su Zimo looked at Yan Jun and suddenly said, Do you remember what I told you previously? Ah. I said, you had better not have any designs on me. Otherwise, the next time, I'll smash your head. The moment he said that, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he flashed, leaving a series of afterimages behind him that seemed surreal. Yan Jun merely felt his vision blur. Just as he wanted to retreat, Su Zimo had already arrived before him. His gaze was sharp like a knife and exuded endless killing intent. Yan Jun exchanged glances with Su Zimo and felt a piercing pain in his eyes. Tears flowed down his face as he closed his eyes instinctively. Once he closed his eyes, he would never have the chance to open them again. Right in front of everyone, Su Zimo flipped his palm and slapped Yan Jun's face heavily. Crack! His grim face was deeply sunken in. His skull was shattered and his facial features were deformed. The inside of his skull had been smashed into paste by that palm strike. Yan Jun's corpse flew far away. Before it could land on the ground, it was torn apart by a group of ancient remnant beasts. Even though Yan Jun was an Elixir Yang sect cultivator, even though Yan Jun was a 7 Meridian Foundation establishment cultivator of the Battle Hall, and even though Su Zimo was just an outsider, no one in Elixir Yang sect raised any objections. That was because everyone knew that if not for Su Zimo, they would have long been devoured by the beast stampede formed by the ancient remnant beasts. Let's move on. Don't stop. After killing Yen Jun, Su Zimo turned around and led the cone-shaped formation forward. Su Zimo's stamina seemed to be endless. His green robes had already been stained red by the blood of the ancient remnant beasts. At that moment, Su Zimo was like a god of war bathed in blood. His eyes shone brighter and he was incomparably valiant with a torrential ferocity. Swinging blood quencher, he was invincible. Even so, there were still Elixir Yang sect disciples who died along the way and were dragged into the beast stampede without being able to escape. The cone-shaped formation shrunk continuously. The battle hall cultivators at the outermost perimeter suffered heavy losses and almost everyone was injured. If not for the continuous supply of elixirs from Elixir Yang sect, the formation would have collapsed long ago. The future was dark and nobody knew when the beast stampede would end or where the Elixir Pool sect ruins were. Everyone could only follow Su Zimo's footsteps instinctively and head deeper into the valley. Everyone was trying their best to hold on. It was as Su Zimo had said, they no longer had a way out and could only press forward. Su Xiaoning followed the crowd and sprinted forward continuously. She would attack as well. However, given her cultivation realm, she might not be able to penetrate the defenses of the ancient remnant beasts even with supreme-grade flying swords. Night Spirit did not say anything and followed beside Xiaoning the entire time. He looked lazy and indifferent towards the beast stampede around them. Night Spirit was tall and was pitch black from head to toe, almost blending into the night. The only thing that could be seen was a pair of pitch black eyes that shone with a frightening glint from time to time. All of a sudden, on the mountain range in front of him, rays of colorful light flickered, illuminating the entire night sky, outlining a stretch of undulating jade palaces. It was magnificent and stunning. Everyone stopped in their tracks instinctively and looked over with their mouths agape. Although nobody had seen what Elixir Pool sect looked like, everyone realized that this was the Elixir Pool sect ruins that they had been searching for painstakingly the moment they caught sight of the immortal palaces. Initially, everyone had no direction nor did they know where the Elixir Pool sect ruins were. But now, the light in the distance was the beacon for all the cultivators in the valley. Charge! Everyone, kill! The Elixir Pool sect ruins are right ahead. Although everyone from Elixir Yang sect could not see the situation far away due to the fog, they could vaguely hear shouts from the side. They were not the only ones. Glass Palace, Malevolent Earth sect and all the other sects that entered the valley were enduring the impact of the beast stampede. Tang Yu was delighted as she shouted, "Everyone, hang in there. The Elixir Pool sect ruins are right ahead. As long as we can reach them, we'll be safe." In the ruins of these ancient sects, there was a powerful force hidden within. The surviving species and ferocious beasts did not dare to step into them easily. Right now, there were only slightly more than 500 people left in Elixir Yang sect and they were all exhausted. However, they felt invigorated and their stamina seemed to have recovered significantly when they heard Tang Yu's words. Su Zimo's expression was calm and he did not feel too happy. Something was amiss. The beast stampede before them was made up of ancient remnant beasts and there must be traces of pure-blooded ferocious beasts behind it. Without the intimidation of pure-blooded ferocious beasts, how could these ancient remnant beasts form a beast stampede in an orderly manner? Roar! Right then, a shuddering roar sounded from the foot of the Elixir Pool sect ruins and the entire beast stampede paused for a moment. A gigantic demon beast appeared at the back of the beast stampede. It was covered in pitch-black fur and resembled a demon dog. Opening its mouth, it spat out flames that extended for hundreds of kilometers, incinerating everything and incinerating countless cultivators into ashes. Chapter 4:15. Pissed, pissed, pissed. Before the cries of the babies stopped, another strange sound came from the other side, as though a snake was flicking its tongue. However, it was truly a little loud. Everyone subconsciously looked towards the source of the voice, and they couldn't help but gasp in shock. There was truly a snake beneath the mountain range. The gigantic snake coiled up from the ground and stretched its upper body. It was 1,000 feet tall and its scales were the size of washbasins. Its head could almost reach the top of the firmaments as it spat out clouds and looked down at everyone with cold, menacing eyes. Swoosh! An evil gust of wind blew as the gigantic snake swayed its long tail that was forked like a pair of hooks. It shone with a cold glint and emitted a stench. It was clear that it was poisonous. The long tail swept across the ground and the hooks at the end pierced the bodies of almost 100 cultivators instantly, causing them to bleed profusely. Among those cultivators, many of them reacted quickly and crushed their protection talismans first. However, against the hooks of the gigantic snake, the protection talismans on the cultivators were as though they were made of paper and could not withstand a single blow. Many cultivators hung on the hooks, dripping with blood in a ghastly manner. Everyone struggled and screamed as they were slowly sent into the mouth of the gigantic snake. The gigantic snake's throat squirmed and swallowed almost 100 cultivators in a single gulp. Pure-blooded ferocious beast, hook snake. Su Zimo's expression turned grim as well. The current situation was clear. If he wanted to reach the Elixir Pool's sect ruins, not only did he have to kill his way through the beast stampede, he had to break through the obstruction of the 3 pure-blooded ferocious beasts. Furthermore, it was clear that the 3 pure-blooded ferocious beasts were at peak Foundation establishment realm. Their terrifying strength had already exceeded Su Zimo's expectations. Given his current strength, it would be difficult for him to kill 3 pure-blooded ferocious beasts. Unless he chose to take on his demon form. After taking on his demon form, Su Zimo would be an extremely strong existence that was even more terrifying than pure-blooded ferocious beasts. Screech! All of a sudden, a majestic howl tore through the clouds from the ends of the skies. A huge bird flew across the sky. Its golden body was extremely dazzling in the night. When it spread its wings, it was dozens of feet long. There were 2 horns on its head, and its gaze was sharp. The bird swooped down and opened its sharp claws, tearing 2 groups of cultivators apart with flesh and blood splattering everywhere. Against pure-blooded ferocious beasts, the cultivators who entered the ancient era were completely helpless. After killing dozens of cultivators, the bird let out another long cry. Its eyes were filled with excitement and cruelty. Could it be another pure-blooded ferocious beast? A pale Elixir Yang sect cultivator asked with a trembling voice. Uncle Yang nodded and gulped. That should be a Gudiao, one of the pure-blooded ancient ferocious beasts. It's said that the bloodline of the golden rock flows in its body. Tang Yu took a deep breath to compose herself and said slowly, this is already the 4th pure-blooded ferocious beast. Uncle Yang whispered, young master, let's retreat. Even if I have to risk my life, I will protect you and escape. Before this, Uncle Yang did not waver even when he encountered a beast stampede of ancient remnant beasts. However, when he saw the 4 pure-blooded ferocious beasts blocking their path, Uncle Yang finally had the intention to retreat. None of them were a match for the pure-blooded ferocious beasts. Even if they could break through the obstruction of the pure-blooded ferocious beasts, it would be extremely fortunate if even a tenth of the remaining 500-odd cultivators could survive. With a hesitant expression, Tang Yu looked at Su Zimo instinctively. Sighing internally, Uncle Yang lamented internally, although that lad is sharp and strong, he's definitely not a match for the pure-blooded ferocious beasts. At that thought, Uncle Yang advised again, young master, the 4 pure-blooded ferocious beasts haven't noticed us yet. We still have a chance to escape. If, thud, thud, thud. Before Uncle Yang could finish, he was interrupted by a dull thud. It sounded as though someone was beating a heavenly drum, deep and powerful. The next moment, a gigantic white ape leaped out from behind the mountain range. It was more than 1,000 feet tall and its scarlet feet stomped heavily on the ground with a deafening bang. The ground tore apart, revealing a series of black cracks. The gigantic ape reared its head and roared. Clenching its fists, it thumped its chest vigorously with thumping sounds. Immediately after, the gigantic ape's gaze shifted to the group of Elixir Yang sect. It was bloodthirsty and bared its fangs menacingly. Not good. Uncle Yang was alarmed. It was probably too late for them to retreat by now. They were targeted by a pure-blooded ferocious beast as well. The fifth pure-blooded ferocious beast had appeared. A white head and bare feet that resembled a gigantic ape. Such a clear mark could only belong to a pure-blooded ferocious beast, the Zhu Yan. Roar! The Zhu Yan roared in the direction of the group of Elixir Yang sect and suddenly reached out with its gigantic palm, crushing the mountain range beside it. Instantly, the mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. Everyone felt their teeth ache and were shocked. That was the power of a pure-blooded ferocious beast. It could uproot mountains and split the ground, its might could engulf thousands of kilometers. Hugging a gigantic mountain with both hands, the Zhu Yan tossed it forcefully towards the group of Elixir Yang sect. The mountain didn't look too big in comparison to Zhu Yan's tall and mighty figure, but when it came crashing down, it gave off the illusion that it would blot out the sky and cover the sun. How was that a mountain? It was clearly a mountain peak. Everyone merely felt their vision darken as the gigantic mountain peak crashed down with a frightening might, filling the skies with gravel. If they were struck by the mountain peak, even ancient remnant beasts would be smashed into meat paste. Hurry and run. Someone could not withstand the pressure and shrieked, turning to flee, wanting to escape the range of the mountain peak before it crashed down. Tang Yu was about to retreat when she realized that Su Zimo was motionless on the spot, merely looking at the rapidly falling mountain peak, as though he was scared out of his wits. Hurry and leave. Tang Yu's heart tightened as she hurried forward, grabbing Su Zimo's arm, wanting to bring him away. Suddenly, Su Zimo roared and the sound of a tsunami echoed from his body. Tang Yu paused in her actions and her expression changed slightly. Channeling his bloodline, Su Zimo stomped heavily on the ground and rose from the ground, extending his arms to welcome the falling mountain peak. Boom! Su Zimo's hands collided with the bottom of the mountain peak and gravel flew everywhere with a deafening sound. The clothes on Su Zimo's arms were completely torn, revealing a pair of muscular arms. His flesh expanded and his muscles knotted together inch by inch, as though they were molten steel. Splash! Pang! 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 His blood was like a tsunami and his tendons were like bowstrings. Without choosing to take on his demon form, Su Zimo's strength was already channeled to its limits. The mountain peak was still falling. Beneath the mountain peak, Su Zimo seemed incomparably tiny. In fact, he was not even as big as the gravel that was rolling down the mountain peak. He was like an ant that wanted to shake an ancient tree. What a joke. However, just as the mountain peak was about to hit the ground, it stopped abruptly. Between the mountain peak and the ground stood a figure that was as tall as a sword. His legs were unyielding and his spine was ramrod straight. His gaze was like a torch as he supported the mountain peak with his supreme divine strength. Even the Zhu Yan in the distance was dumbfounded, as though it could not comprehend what was happening, let alone the many Elixir Yang sect disciples. Ha! Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo exerted strength in his arms and hugged the mountain peak above his head. Exhaling, he slammed it forward viciously. Even if it was the flesh of an ancient remnant beast, Night Spirit was not interested and only ate a little. Su Zimo could not figure out what Night Spirit liked to eat. It couldn't possibly eat dragon eggs all the time, right? But now, he vaguely realized that Night Spirit's food might be pure-blooded ferocious beasts. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. What was the background of Night Spirit if it could eat pure-blooded ferocious beasts? Was it even more terrifying than pure-blooded ferocious beasts? He recalled the greedy look on Night Spirit's face when it caught sight of the dragon egg in the ancient ruins. Su Zimo was increasingly curious about Night Spirit's background. Be careful. Su Zimo patted Night Spirit's head and reminded. Night Spirit did not reply. In a flash, it had already blended into the night and vanished without a trace. Night Spirit was like a ghost in the night, leaving without a sound. Apart from Su Zimo, no one else noticed it. At that moment, ancient remnant beasts were still charging at them from the surroundings, tearing at their formation. Everyone from Elixir Yang sect gathered together and defended with all their might. Up ahead, the Zhu Yan was already far away from the Elixir Pool sect ruins. Its figure disappeared into the night fog and everyone's vision. The only thing left was a pair of scarlet, lantern-like bloodshot eyes that hovered in the night, closing in rapidly. The loud and heavy footsteps were getting closer and closer. Each time it sounded, everyone's hearts would skip a beat. Tang Yu tried her best to widen her eyes and look forward. It was as though she could already see a tall and mighty silhouette appearing in the hazy night. Pure-blooded ferocious beast, the Zhu Yan. Uncle Liang took a deep breath and a resolute look flashed through his eyes. He withdrew a flying sword from his storage bag and was prepared to attack. Su Zimo's expression was calm and his gaze was like water without a single ripple. All of a sudden, the pair of lanterns up ahead suddenly stopped and the footsteps of the Zhu Yan disappeared as well. Groar! As though it had encountered something huge, the Zhu Yan shrieked tragically and its lantern-like bloodshot eyes flickered in midair. Su Zimo hollered, "Charge over." Now! Tang Yu was stunned. Now! Wielding Blood Quencher, Su Zimo chopped down two ancient remnant beasts that had just charged over. Dragging Xiaoning with his left hand, he led the charge. Su Zimo did not know how strong the Night Spirit was or if it could kill the Zhu Yan. However, the Zhu Yan must not have the time to care about anything else right now, this was the best opportunity. Groar! As though it had gone mad, the Zhu Yan howled hysterically, clearly in a berserk state. In the night fog, everyone from Elixir Yang's sect could not see what was happening to the Zhu Yan. However, through the faint light emitted from the Zhu Yan's bloodshot eyes, they could vaguely make out a black shadow sprawled on the back of the pure-blooded ferocious beast like a phantom. Those sharp claws extended silently, shimmering with a cold glint in the night. Poof! There was a crisp sound. One of the blood-red eyes emitted a stream of scarlet blood before it quickly dimmed. Pest! Many cultivators sucked in a breath of cold air and their expressions changed. One of the Zhu Yan's eyes was blinded by the mysterious black shadow. Groar! Groar! The Zhu Yan howled in pain and roared from the depths of its throat as it charged around in a frenzy. Some of the ancient remnant beasts could not dodge in time and were killed on the spot. Some were stomped into meat paste by the Zhu Yan's gigantic feet without a corpse. It was an extremely tragic sight. The Zhu Yan was severely injured and the beast stampede dispersed. Chapter 4:17. Others might not be able to see clearly in the fog of the night, but Su Zimo could see everything clearly. In that short period of time, there were already more than 10 wounds on the Zhu Yan's body. They were so deep that bones could be seen and flesh was ripped outwards. Blood had already dyed the white fur on its body red. The Zhu Yan grabbed Night Spirit on its back and yanked it down. Night Spirit's claws had already dug into the Zhu Yan's flesh. While the Zhu Yan yanked Night Spirit down, Night Spirit's claws tore off a huge chunk of flesh from the Zhu Yan's back along the way, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Groar! The Zhu Yan had never suffered such injuries before. With a furious roar, it grabbed Night Spirit and slammed it onto the ground. Even with Night Spirit's physique, it would not feel good if it landed on the ground. A black shadow flashed through the void. Poof! It was Night Spirit's tail that pierced the Zhu Yan's arm. Instantly, blood gushed out like a fountain and one of the Zhu Yan's arms was crippled on the spot. The Zhu Yan's arm drooped and its strength diminished. Night Spirit rolled on the ground and crawled up unscathed. It glared at the Zhu Yan coldly and licked its lips. Su Zimo heaved a sigh of relief. In that short period of time, the Zhu Yan was already blinded in one eye and crippled in one arm. There were more than 10 wounds on its body that bled endlessly. The Zhu Yan panted heavily. Initially, fresh blood was something that could trigger its ferocity. But now, the Zhu Yan was afraid. It was way too severely injured. From its birth until now, it had never suffered such a serious injury. The Zhu Yan smelled the scent of death. An inexplicable fear surged into its heart as it looked at the black shadow that was countless times weaker than it that was approaching slowly, almost causing its guts to shatter. That fear seemed to originate from the depths of its bloodline and inherited memories. As though it recalled something, the Zhu Yan shuddered in fright. Its single eye was filled with horror as it turned and fled without hesitation. When he saw that, Su Zimo shook his head internally. If the Zhu Yan chose to fight Night Spirit head-on and fought with its life on the line, it might have a chance of survival. But now that it had turned and fled, its back was exposed to Night Spirit, it was dead for sure. Su Zimo led everyone from Elixir Yang sect forward and sprinted towards the Elixir Pool sect ruins. The beast stampede was scattered and there were only a few ancient remnant beasts that could no longer pose much of a threat. After the Zhu Yan's escape, there was a vast expanse of land. On the other side, there were 4 pure-blooded ferocious beasts that were blocking Glass Palace, Malevolent Earth Sect, Puppet Sect, Thousand Cranes Sect and other sections. Elixir Yang Sect was the first to arrive at Elixir Sect's ruins. Other than Su Zimo who could still stand, Tang Yu and the others were slumped on the ground, drenched in sweat. Their faces were pale as they panted heavily. Along the way, everyone felt a deep sense of exhaustion. It was a mental death. Constantly moving forward on the edge of life and death, with the possibility of losing their lives at any time, this kind of pressure was enough to make everyone physically and mentally exhausted. Thankfully, they survived. They charged out of the encirclement of the ancient blood mosquitoes, broke free from the pursuit of the Earth Dragon, killed a bloody path through the beast stampede and arrived at the Elixir Pool sect ruins despite the obstruction of the pure-blooded ferocious beasts. A surreal feeling welled up in everyone's heart. Everyone was laughing. It was an indescribable joy of surviving a calamity. Looking at the only figure who was still standing in the crowd, everyone's eyes revealed traces of gratitude and reverence. If not for him, they would have died a long time ago. Even Uncle Liang could not help but admit that he had underestimated Su Zimo. When he saw the beast stampede formed by the ancient remnant beasts, Uncle Liang had already expected that it would be extremely fortunate if even a tenth of the 1,000-odd cultivators survived. When he saw the pure-blooded ferocious beasts blocking the way, Uncle Liang already had thoughts of retreating. He truly had not expected that more than 400 Elixir Yang sect cultivators would make it to the Elixir Pool sect ruins alive under Su Zimo's lead. Tang Yu raised her head slightly and looked at Su Zimo's back view with a dazed gaze. "Just who are you?" Suddenly, a strong curiosity towards Su Zimo arose in Tang Yu's heart. What was that mysterious ferocious beast that fought against the Zhu Yan? "I don't know, I didn't get a clear look." Thankfully, that mysterious ferocious beast made a move. Otherwise, we would have been doomed. Some of the Elixir Yang sect disciples discussed softly as they consumed elixirs to recover their stamina. After resting for a short while, Tang Yu stood up and clapped her hands, declaring loudly, "Everyone, now's not the time to rest. Let's go check out what treasures Elixir Pool sect has." "All right." Everyone replied loudly. Many Elixir Yang sect cultivators supported one another and stood up, heading into Elixir Pool sect under Tang Yu's lead. Even after so many years, the many palaces and pavilions of Elixir Pool sect were still perfectly preserved. Before long, Xiaoning tugged at Su Zimo's sleeves. Su Zimo turned around and saw Xiaoning pointing to her chest. There was a mysterious elixir furnace placed close to her body. "There's a reaction?" Su Zimo asked. Xiaoning whispered, "Yes, it's getting hotter." Su Zimo nodded. That mysterious elixir furnace might truly have something to do with the ancient elixir pool sect. Everyone continued forward. Su Zimo turned back and frowned slightly. Night Spirit was still not back. Logically speaking, this period of time should have been enough for the Night Spirit to kill the Zhu Yan. However, Su Zimo could not find any traces of the Night Spirit. Su Zimo did not think too much about it. In such an environment, even if the Night Spirit encountered danger, it would be able to escape unscathed given its vigilance and methods. The largest palace in Elixir Pool's sect was the Elixir Refinement Hall. The Elixir Refinement Hall faced everyone. It was more than 100 feet tall and majestic. It was extremely eye-catching in the ruins. Even though they were far away, everyone could still smell a faint medicinal fragrance. Every single treasure in the Elixir Refinement Hall was something that Elixir Yang's sect had to fight for. If there was a place where the Meridian Unlocking Elixir formula could be preserved, it would be the Elixir Refinement Hall before them. Everyone sped towards the Elixir Refinement Hall and arrived before long. Arriving at the entrance, Tang Yu frowned slightly when she looked at the palace before her. Above the palace, there were mysterious rays of light, and some vague words could be seen flashing. There was obviously a seal on it. Tang Yu went forward and touched the door of the hall gently. The moment her palm landed on it, it was repelled by the power of the seal on the hall. She was not allowed to enter. This was a little tricky. Tang Yu frowned and thought of a solution. A cultivator stood out and said in a deep voice, "Can't we work together to destroy the seal on the surface of the hall? This seal has existed for eons and has never been destroyed. How can it be destroyed so easily?" Pondering for a moment, Uncle Yang said slowly, "Legend has it that the Elixir Refinement Hall is the most important inheritance ground of Elixir Pool's sect. Only legacy disciples are allowed entry. By the looks of it, the legend should be true. Elixir Pool's sect disappeared in the ancient era. How can there be any legacy disciples left?" A cultivator shook his head. Chapter 418. Right then, Su Xiaoning walked out of the crowd slowly with a dazed expression, as though she was in a strange state as she walked towards the Elixir Refinement Hall ahead. A mysterious glow shone on Xiaoning's chest. As she approached the hall, the glow intensified and was gradually bedazzling, almost enveloping Xiaoning's entire body. Everyone was dumbfounded, confused. Su Zimo stood at the side and did not stop her. Back in the capital of Great Zhou, Su Zimo could already tell that the elixir furnace had an extraordinary background. After entering the ancient battlefield, his guess was further confirmed. Now that he was here, Su Zimo was almost certain that the mysterious elixir furnace was inextricably linked to Elixir Pool sect. Right in front of everyone, Xiaoning walked step by step to the front of the hall. Reaching out, she touched the seal on the hall gently. To everyone's surprise, the seal did not bounce Xiaoning away. On the contrary, the mysterious runes that flowed on the surface of the hall seemed to be attracted by something as they gathered towards Xiaoning endlessly like rivers flowing into the sea. A spirit consciousness inheritance. Uncle Yang exclaimed. When they heard those words, many cultivators present revealed envious expressions. In the ancient battlefield, elixirs and treasures were not the most valuable. The true opportunities were the legacies of ancient mighty figures and ancient sects. In reality, the Saber Mountain Spirit Sea was one of those legacies. In some sects, the true secret skills and cultivation techniques would not be preserved in the form of cloth, bamboo slips or books to prevent them from falling into the hands of outsiders. The elixir refinement hall before them might contain many ancient elixir recipes. However, the true secrets of Elixir Pool's sect must be within the spirit consciousness inheritance before them. In other words, Su Xiaoning was the only one who inherited the true secrets of Elixir Pool's sect. Why is it her? A cultivator could not help but ask. Tang Yu replied, Xiaoning must have a token from Elixir Pool's sect in her possession. Furthermore, it must be an extremely important token. An Elixir Refinement Master with that token is equivalent to a legacy disciple of Elixir Pool's sect. Uncle Liang stroked his long beard and said in relief, if this girl obtains this opportunity and joins our sect will have a chance of regaining the glory of Elixir Pool's sect. Su Zimo was truly relieved as well. Initially, Elixir Yang's sect took in Xiaoning because of his strength and wanted to rope him in. Su Zimo was still worried that Xiaoning might have suffered after joining Elixir Pool's sect. But now, there was no need for that worry. With the inheritance of Elixir Pool's sect and the help of the mysterious Elixir Furnace, Xiaoning would definitely become a top-notch Elixir Refinement Master if she were to cultivate diligently in Elixir Yang's sect. Su Zimo, and I will bring her to meet the Patriarch. After we return, Uncle Liang and I, and Uncle Liang and I will bring her Xiaonings to meet the Patriarch and report. The sect master is an alchemy grandmaster with extremely high standards. So far, he has only accepted one disciple. When she sees Ning, she will like her very much and take her as a disciple. Su Zimo nodded. An Elixir Refinement Master. Although there was only a single word difference between Elixir Refinement Master and Elixir Refinement Master, their statuses were worlds apart. There was not a single Elixir Refinement Master in the entire Great Zhou dynasty. Above Elixir Refinement Masters were Elixir Refinement Grandmasters and above them were Elixir Refinement Grandmasters. There were many Elixir Refinement Masters who could not even reach the boundary of Master in their entire lives, let alone obtain the title of Grandmaster. In the Tao of Weapon Refinement, there were also titles of Master and Grandmaster. Although Su Zimo had the help of his spirit perception and even managed to refine perfect spirit weapons, he was still only a Weapon Refinement Master. Only after reaching nascent soul realm and gaining the ability to refine dermic weapons could one become a Weapon Refinement Master. In other words, if one wanted to become a master, not only did they have to have accomplishments in elixir and weapon refinement, they could not fall behind in terms of cultivation realm as well. The sound of robes fluttering could be heard from behind as more cultivators broke through the obstruction of pure-blooded ferocious beasts and entered the Elixir Pool sect ruins, speeding over. Everyone, get into formation and protect Xiaoning. Tang Yu was decisive and passed down the order. Right now, the most important thing was to ensure that Xiaoning was not disturbed while receiving the inheritance of Elixir Pool sect. It did not matter if the intruders were friend or foe, Elixir Yang's sect would not allow anything to happen to the inheritance. Before long, more than 20 cultivators sprinted over. All of them were battered and covered in injuries. They were Chiguramon cultivators. Su Zimo was shocked and hurriedly patrolled the crowd. When he saw that Leng Ro was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief and welcomed them alongside Tang Yu. Sister Man, are you alright? Tang Yu withdrew a few bottles of elixirs from her storage bag and handed them over. Feng Man looked haggard and was covered in wounds. She thanked Tang Yu after receiving the elixirs and consumed them hurriedly. Although she had elixirs as well, they could not compare to those of Elixir Yang's sect in terms of medicinal effects. On the other side, Leng Ro was severely injured as well and her face was even paler. However, her expression was still cold. It was only after she caught sight of Su Zimo that a hint of warmth flashed through her eyes. Su Zimo had some elixirs given to him by Tang Yu in his storage bag as well. None of those elixirs were perfect elixirs and Su Zimo would not consume them. Now, he took them all out and handed them to Leng Ro. Leng Ro did not decline and did not stand on ceremony with Su Zimo either. After experiencing the bloody battle on the long street, the friendship between the few of them had long surpassed the friendship of ordinary fellow disciples. Feng Man consumed the elixirs and rested for a while before noticing everyone from Elixir Yang's sect below the Elixir Refinement Hall. Shocked, she exclaimed softly, "So many people. What? Tang Yu was slightly stunned. Feng Man sighed and smiled bitterly. It's already extremely fortunate for us to be able to charge through the obstruction of the pure-blooded ferocious beasts alive. Out of the 1,000-odd cultivators, there are only 20-odd of us left. To think that there are still more than 400 of you left. Impressive. Tang Yu glanced at Su Zimo without saying anything. If not for Su Zimo at the front, Elixir Yang's sect would have been wiped out long ago. Come to think of it, it's also luck, Feng Man sighed again. Initially, there was a pure-blooded Gudiao blocking the way ahead and we couldn't make it over. Later on, the Gudiao seemed to have been attacked and was unable to fend for itself. That was why we took the opportunity to charge over. Sigh, even so, we're the only ones left. Ah, we saw it too. Tang Yu said hurriedly. Initially, there was a Zhu Yan blocking the way ahead. Later on, a mysterious ferocious beast appeared out of nowhere and severely injured the Zhu Yan, allowing us to make it over successfully. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Initially, he was still puzzled as to why Night Spirit had yet to return after such a long time. Now that he heard Feng Man's words, Su Zimo gradually understood. After Night Spirit killed the Zhu Yan, it must have gone to kill the pure-blooded Gudiao. Before Su Zimo's thought was finished, Little Fatty's voice sounded from not far away. We're really King lucky. That 9 neonate is way too scary. It can spit fire and water and anyone who comes into contact with it will either die or be injured. We can't even get close to it. Who knows what kind of black thing appeared out of nowhere and killed that Jiao Ying. Otherwise, we would all have died there. Shi Jian added, yes, I saw it too. After that black thing killed the 9 neonate, it seemed to have run towards the other 2 pure-blooded ferocious beasts, the hook snake and Huado. When he heard that, Su Zimo's mouth twitched. Chapter 419. Bro, you guys are here too. That's good, that's good. When Little Fatty caught sight of Su Zimo and the others, his eyes lit up and he ran over hurriedly. His loose robes could not conceal his jiggling fats no matter what. The 6 of them were naturally delighted that they managed to arrive here safely without any mishaps. Feng Man cupped her fists. Chiguramon won't be taking anything from the Elixir Refinement Hall. Let's head in and see if there are any ancient talisman books that have been preserved. Yes, Tang Yu nodded. Len Ro bade farewell to Su Zimo and the others. There were not many cultivators from Tomb Sect and Puppet Sect that entered the valley to begin with, and now, there were only a handful of them left. Little Fatty and Shi Jian left with the leaders of their respective sects to enter the ruins in search of treasures and opportunities as well. Right then, a dark figure flashed not far away. Like a phantom, it arrived beside Su Zimo silently without attracting anyone's attention. Night Spirit had returned. Night Spirit held something bloody in his mouth that resembled a meatball with a foul stench. Su Zimo glanced at it casually and did not pay much attention to it initially. However, immediately after, Su Zimo seemed to have thought of something as he turned around and his eyelids twitched. It was the Zhu Yan's head. Its neck was clearly torn apart by sharp claws and one of its eyes was blinded. Night Spirit bit down on the severed neck and brought it back just like that. Isn't that Night Spirit? Tang Yu caught a whiff of the blood stench and turned around to see Night Spirit standing beside Su Zimo with something bloody in his mouth. Yes, Su Zimo replied without saying anything else. Tang Yu frowned slightly. Suddenly, she felt that something was amiss. Night Spirit seemed to have disappeared for a period of time right after the Zhu Yan appeared. However, at that time, everyone's attention was attracted by the Zhu Yan and they were all trying their best to escape. No one noticed if Night Spirit was following them. Tang Yu couldn't remember. No matter how hard she tried to recall, the existence of Night Spirit during that period of time was a blank. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. Tang Yu asked hesitantly, fellow Taoist Su, has Night Spirit always been with us? Yeah, I've been following you. Su Zimo nodded with a calm expression. What's that? Tang Yu pointed at the lump of blood in Night Spirit's mouth and asked curiously. Su Zimo replied ambiguously, I don't know either. I reckon that it bit off some random ancient remnant beast's corpse on the way here. Now, Zhu Yin's face was beyond recognition. It was a bloody mess and its head was dyed red with blood. How could Tang Yu recognize it? Tang Yu asked a few more questions, but she was even more confused. After pondering for a while, he still couldn't think of a reason, so he put the matter aside for the time being. After Tang Yu left, Su Zimo turned to look at Night Spirit and asked in a low voice, why did you bring that head back? Why don't you finish it outside? Ooh. Ooh. Night Spirit put down the Zhu Yin's head and extended his claws, pointing at it before pointing at Su Zimo. If anyone else saw this, they would definitely not understand what Night Spirit meant. However, Su Zimo understood and asked with a frown, you're saying that this thing is for me to eat? Night Spirit nodded and licked his lips again. By the looks of it, he was still reluctant to part with it. Su Zimo smiled and shook his head. Go ahead and eat it. You haven't eaten anything good all these years. Although Su Zimo had once tasted raw meat and blood in Sung Lang mountain range for the sake of his demonic cultivation, he was still a human. Su Zimo truly lost his appetite at the sight of that bloody head. When Night Spirit saw that Su Zimo was not eating, he rubbed his head against the ladder again. Thereafter, he extended a claw and gently pierced a hole in the head of the Zhu Yin. After a while, a milky white viscous liquid began to flow out of the hole. It emitted a rich fragrance that whetted one's appetite. This is, Su Zimo blinked and vaguely thought of something. The Zhu Yin's brain. In the ancient books of Misty Peak, there was a sentence written at the end of the Zhu Yin chapter. An ancient mighty figure ate its brain and praised, it's fragrant in the mouth and has an endless aftertaste. The fact that an ancient mighty figure would give such an evaluation was proof of the deliciousness of the Zhu Yin's brain. Night Spirit stuck out its tongue and licked clean the brain matter that had spilled out, revealing an intoxicated expression. A moment later, Night Spirit lifted the Zhu Yin's head and handed it to Su Zimo, indicating for him to just suck at the hole. Night Spirit was becoming more and more human-like and was clearly at the peak of Foundation establishment realm. It could condense an inner core at any moment and transform into a human form. Su Zimo felt a warmth in his heart. However, he still shook his head and smiled. You can have it. I'm not used to eating this. Night Spirit was doubtful and tilted his head to look at Su Zimo with a confused expression. He did not seem to understand how anyone could dislike such a delicacy in the world. When he saw that Su Zimo was truly indifferent, Night Spirit lifted the Zhu Yin's head and sucked at the hole in the head. Gulp. Gulp. In a few mouthfuls, the Zhu Yin's brain was sucked clean. After he was done, Night Spirit licked his lips as though he had not had enough. Woo! Woo! Night Spirit cried out again and swayed his tail, circling to Su Zimo agilely. Su Zimo focused his gaze. On the spike at the end of the tail, there was an egg-shaped object the size of a fist. It was emerald green in color and contained emerald green juice. This is, the gallbladder of the hook snake. Su Zimo pondered for a moment and probed. Night Spirit nodded and handed the gallbladder to Su Zimo, indicating for him to eat it. If the Zhu Yin's brain was a rare delicacy in the world, then the gallbladder of the hook snake was a rare medicinal herb. A drop of the gallbladder of the hook snake was enough for an ordinary person to be healthy for 100 years. After a cultivator swallowed it, their poison resistance would increase tremendously and they would be able to resist most poisons. Su Zimo rubbed Night Spirit's head and said softly, Night Spirit, you can have it. I'm almost immune to all poisons now. I don't need this. Night Spirit fell silent. A moment later, Night Spirit's eyes lit up. Suddenly, he raised his head in Xiaoning's direction and cried out. Do you mean to give the gallbladder to Xiaoning? Su Zimo asked. Night Spirit nodded and gestured a few times. Su Zimo understood what he meant. Night Spirit was saying that he had failed to protect Xiaoning when she was poisoned previously. This gallbladder was his apology gift to Xiaoning. After eating the gallbladder, Xiaoning would not have to worry about being poisoned in the future. Su Zimo fell silent. Be it the Zhuyan's brain or the hook snake's gallbladder, these two items were the most precious items of the Zhuyan and the hook snake. After Night Spirit took it out, he did not think of himself but of Su Zimo and Xiaoning. He wanted to share the delicacy with Su Zimo and help Xiaoning improve her body. Night Spirit would only do such a thing if he saw Su Zimo and Xiaoning as the closest people to him. Su Zimo went forward and hugged Night Spirit's neck, patting its back and saying softly, Night Spirit, thank you. Chapter 420. In the direction of the valley, a few more cultivators rushed over. Everyone was panting and had yet to recover from the shock. Everyone from Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth Sect were among them. However, those two sects were in an even more tragic state. Apart from Pei Chunyu, there were only 8 Glass Palace cultivators left and all of them were injured with pale faces. It was the same for Malevolent Earth Sect. In reality, if Night Spirit had not killed the other 4 pure-blooded ferocious beasts, it would have been difficult for the others to make it here alive. Unless a sealer risked his life and released the power of a Jin Dan to kill the pure-blooded ferocious beasts. But this time round, Su Zimo finally met the sealers of those 2 sections. Behind Pei Chunyu was an old man in golden robes. His gaze was bright and he exuded a dignified aura. Although his hair was white, his skin shone with a crystalline luster like that of a baby. On Malevolent Earth Sect's side, a skinny old man in black robes followed closely behind Shui Yang with a cold gaze like a ghost. 2 sealers had appeared. Among the factions of Primordial World, not every super sect would have a sealer following them. For example, Poison Sect, Puppet Sect and Tomb Sect of the 5 unorthodox groups did not have any sealers following them. When Pei Chunyu and the others arrived near the Elixir Refinement Hall, they could not help but be shocked when they swept their gazes. There were more than 400 Elixir Yang Sect disciples who made it here alive. Although Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth Sect coveted the treasures within the Elixir Refinement Hall as well, they did not dare to go against Elixir Yang Sect head-on when they saw so many people. After a slight hesitation, Glass Palace, Malevolent Earth Sect and the group of itinerant cultivators headed towards the depths of the ruins. Su Zimo looked at the departing backs of the cultivators of the 2 sects in deep thought. A moment later, Su Zimo patted Night Spirit on the forehead and whispered, "Stay here and guard Xiaoning. I'll head into the depths of the ruins to check it out." Are you really going to fight for the perfect meridian unlocking elixir? Tang Yu frowned when she saw that Su Zimo wanted to head into the ruins. Xiaoning is receiving the inheritance here. In order to prevent any accidents, we can't leave. If you head in alone, you won't stand a chance against the experts of the various sections. I must obtain the perfect meridian opening pill. Su Zimo said resolutely with a firm gaze. Originally, Su Zimo had intended to wait for Xiaoning to receive the inheritance before venturing into the ruins with everyone. However, by the looks of it, Xiaoning would not be able to complete the inheritance within a short period of time. Furthermore, Glass Palace, Malevolent Earth Sect and the other sects had already ventured deep into the ruins. Su Zimo could not wait any longer. You have to be careful. The other side has a sealer. If you see that things aren't going well, don't fight them head-on. Tang Yu said, I reckon that the inheritance that Xiaoning received definitely has the formula for the meridian unlocking elixir. If you're not in a hurry, you'll definitely have the chance to consume a perfect meridian unlocking pill in the future. Got it. Su Zimo nodded. His figure moved, and a pair of spiritual wings appeared on his back. He leaped into the air and sped towards the depths. Su Zimo did not know where Elixir Pool Sect's meridian unlocking elixir was kept either. At that moment, he used ethereal wings to look down from above and relied on his shocking eyesight to patrol the area continuously. His ears twitched as he listened to the news coming from all directions. East. Hurry. We found the place where the elixir is stored. Ah. Hurry. Vaguely, Su Zimo heard some intermittent voices. Standing in midair, Su Zimo's gaze shifted to the east. He caught sight of a region in the east that shone with a divine light, and many cultivators were gathering there. There's no mistake. In a flash, Su Zimo vanished from the spot. East of the Elixir Pool Sect ruins. Looking down from the sky, one could clearly see that there were rows of gigantic jade bottles made of rocks on the ground, resembling cave abodes. The mouth of the bottle was the entrance of the cave, and there were words written on it. Although they were already blurred, one could still make out the words. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, it was obvious by now. A Level 1 cave abode would definitely store a Grade 1 elixir. A Level 2 cave abode would store a Grade 2 elixir. A Level 3 cave abode, there were a total of 8 jade bottle cave abodes here. In other words, there was a high chance that a Grade 8 elixir was stored in the 8th jade bottle cave abode. Even the elixir consumed by perfected being Jean Dan was only a Grade 3 elixir. What sort of cultivation realm was a Grade 8 elixir meant for? Of course, even if they knew that, the cultivators gathered before the 8 cave abodes could only lament their inadequacies. That was because there was a seal at the entrance of each cave. Even after so many years, the seals were still perfectly preserved. Even if it was a Grade 3 elixir, none of the cultivators in the ancient battlefield would be able to break it, let alone a Grade 8 elixir. At that moment, everyone's gazes were fixed on the cave abodes containing Grade 2 elixirs. That was because the meridian unlocking elixir was a Grade 2 elixir. Everyone, no matter what, we've got to break the seal of this cave abode first. A moment later, Pei Chunyu stood out and declared, the earlier we break the seal, the earlier we can enter the cave abode and obtain the elixirs we need. The longer we delay here, the more cultivators will be able to split the elixirs later on. That's right. Let's join forces and break the seal first. I agree. As for the elixirs inside, we'll have to rely on our own capabilities after we enter the cave abode. Many cultivators agreed. Bang! 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 Under Pei Chunyu's command, many cultivators struck at the same time, summoning their flying swords and striking the seal of the Grade 2 elixir cave abode repeatedly. A series of light screens appeared at the entrance of the cave, flickering continuously and emitting a brilliant light. As time passed by, the light gradually dimmed. The seal is about to be broken. Everyone, let's work harder. Some cultivators shouted excitedly. The 2 sealers of Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth Sect did not make a move and merely watched coldly from the sidelines. Although the sealers would not be devoured by the dimensional tears here as long as they did not release their Jean Dan realm powers, the 2 of them were old and their stamina was waning, they would not make a move easily. At their age, every single time they made a move, they would expend what little life essence they had left. It was like a 10-year-old in the mortal world. If they cultivated their bodies and minds, they could live for a few more years. However, if they exercised vigorously and expended their blood essence, they would die before long. Bang! 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 There was another series of explosions and a series of cracking sounds could be heard from the entrance of the cave. After a momentary pause, the light screen shattered. The eyes of many cultivators lit up and they moved at the same time, swarming towards the entrance of the cave. This cave abode had been sealed for countless years and yet, there was no aura within it. Instead, it was filled with a rich medicinal fragrance that invigorated one's spirits. Sprinting the entire way, it did not take long for everyone to arrive at the depths of the cave abode and their vision cleared up. A gigantic spirit pool was placed at the end of the cave abode. Congealed jade bottles floated in the spirit pool one after another, densely packed at a single glance. Every single one of them contained elixirs. The elixirs were nourished with spirit liquid to ensure that they would not rot after 10,000 years. This was a true elixir pool. Chapter 421. Words were clearly engraved on the densely packed jade bottles. Spirit Regeneration Elixir, Mystic Yang Elixir, Snow Lotus Elixir, Grand Essence Enhancing Elixir. There were all sorts of elixirs that everyone was familiar with. Some elixirs that had been lost in Tianhuang mainland floated in the elixir pool as well. In fact, there were some elixirs whose names were unheard of. However, none of that was important. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the elixir pool, searching for a single elixir, the Meridian Unlocking Elixir. There. Someone with sharp eyes caught sight of the jade bottle of the Meridian Unlocking Elixir and exclaimed. Swash! 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 One after another, figures charged forward and grabbed for the Meridian Unlocking Elixir in the elixir pool. Scram! Pei Chunyu hollered softly and channeled his bloodline, causing a crystalline glass light to flow on his skin. With a backhand punch, he exploded the head of a cultivator beside him. The person did not make a sound and could not resist at all as his headless corpse fell from midair. Someone at the side took out a flying sword and stabbed it towards Pei Chunyu's head. Pei Chunyu did not dodge or avoid and reached out, grabbing the flying sword in his palm. His palm was unharmed. Pei Chunyu's spirit weapon was a pair of gloves. Furthermore, it was a perfect-grade spirit weapon and he was not afraid of his opponent's flying sword at all. Humph! How dare you fight with me for the Meridian Unlocking Elixir with just that? Pei Chunyu sneered and exerted strength in his palm. With a snap, the superior-grade flying sword was snapped and flung in reverse. The strength of the Glass Palace cultivator was immense and the broken sword turned into a beam of light, piercing the chest of the opposing cultivator instantly, causing fresh blood to spurt out. Another person was dead. Pei Chunyu displayed his might and his fists were like a pair of gigantic hammers that were invincible. Although there were some itinerant cultivators at 7 Meridian Foundation establishment, they were not a match for Pei Chunyu at all. With a single punch, their tendons and bones were broken and their bodies exploded. In the blink of an eye, Pei Chunyu killed most of the cultivators around him. On the other side, Shuiyang held a bone spear that was completely covered in blood. His expression was gloomy, and he didn't hold back in the slightest. He'd already successively killed over 10 cultivators, causing blood to dye the pill pool red. The successors of the two major sects, Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth Sect, stood at the front of Dan Qi and went on a killing spree. No one dared to step forward. The two of them exchanged glances. Almost at the same time, they leaped forward and reached for the Suet Jade bottle with the Meridian Unlocking Elixir written on it. You're courting death. The killing intent in Pei Chunyu's eyes intensified. He changed his attack trajectory at the last minute and grabbed Shuiyang's wrist. Even though Shuiyang was the fiend heir of Malevolent Earth Sect, his physique was far inferior to Pei Chunyu's. If Pei Chunyu caught him, Shuiyang's hand would be crippled. Left with no choice, Shuiyang retracted his hand. A dark look flashed through his eyes as he said coldly, "If I can't get it, don't even think about getting it." At the same time Shuiyang retracted his hand, a spear head popped out from under his ribs strangely. It emitted a dense malevolent aura and shone with spirit light, piercing Pei Chunyu's palm. Even though Shuiyang's bone spear was not a perfect spirit weapon, it was naturally not to be underestimated after being tempered with malevolent aura day and night for dozens of years. The collision of the two spirit weapons, coupled with the strength of the two of them, caused a golden and black energy halo to burst forth and spread across the surface of the Dan Qi. Piak! 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 There was no way the Suet Jade bottles floating in the Dan Qi could withstand that sort of energy fluctuation. They shattered one after another, scattering countless elixirs with a suffocating medicinal fragrance. Among the dense elixirs, there was a handful of meridian unlocking elixirs with extremely good quality. Almost all of them were supreme grade 4 vein patterns. Almost at the same time, the two of them focused their gazes on one of the meridian unlocking elixirs. Although the meridian unlocking elixir was clearly smaller, it revealed 5 dreamy elixir patterns on its surface. A perfect meridian unlocking elixir. Instantly, their gazes turned incomparably fervent and their breathing turned heavier. Given their potential, there was at least an 80% chance of them unlocking their 8th spirit meridian after obtaining the perfect meridian unlocking elixir. Right now, apart from Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang, no one else dared to approach the Dan Qi recklessly. Pei Chunyu said slowly with a stern expression, "Shui Yang, there's only one meridian unlocking elixir. You'd better not fight with me for it." Hee hee. Shui Yang laughed strangely. "You think you can get me to back out with just a single sentence? Let's rely on our own capabilities. I want to see what level your Glass Heart Sutra is at." "Alright, I'll show you then." Before his sentence was finished, Pei Chunyu strode forward and sped towards Shui Yang. Pei Chunyu's physique was strong and he specialized in melee combat. Once he closed in on Shui Yang, he would definitely lose. Naturally, Shui Yang understood that as well. With a flick of his wrist, spirit energy circulated within his body and surged wildly into his bone spear. In the blink of an eye, the bone spear broke into 11 pieces. Previously, the malevolent earth sect cultivator, Di Xing, who tried to kill Su Zimo outside Xiantian City, had 10 pieces to his bone spear. Shui Yang's bone spear was even more than his. Go! Using malevolent earth sect's weapon control technique, Shui Yang controlled the 11 pieces of the bone spear that carried a pitch-black malevolent aura to envelop Pei Chunyu, sealing off all his paths of escape. Although Pei Chunyu was strong, he only had 2 fists. When he saw the 11 pieces of the bone spear piercing over, Pei Chunyu slapped his storage bag and withdrew a glass steel shield. Instantly, it expanded and blocked in front of him. Boom! The 11 pieces of the bone spear collided against the glass steel shield with a loud bang. This time round, both of them used their full strength. Pei Chunyu retreated and Shui Yang's 11 pieces of bone spear were repelled as well. A blank space appeared between the two of them. Swash! The moment the two of them retreated after the head-on collision, a figure charged over at lightning speed, leaving a series of afterimages in midair that seemed both real and illusory. In a flash, the figure had already arrived above the elixir pool and scooped up the perfect meridian unlocking elixir in his palm. The crowd was in an uproar. It was too fast. Even the spectating cultivators could not react in time, let alone Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang. Furthermore, the timing of this person's appearance was way too precise. It was right when Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang were fighting head-on and had yet to recover their strength. Just like that, the two of them watched as the perfect meridian unlocking elixir was snatched away by someone else. How dare you! You must have a death wish. Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang were enraged and killing intent surged in their eyes, almost spewing out. The spectating cultivators were curious as well as they wondered who it was that dared to snatch food from the jaws of a tiger. That action was equivalent to offending 2 super sects, Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth Sect. The cultivator who arrived after snatching the perfect meridian unlocking elixir paused for a moment and stood in midair without any support. Dressed in green robes, he had a calm expression and a pair of spirit wings on his back that flapped gently. It's him. Su Zimo. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. Pei Chunyu's expression darkened instantly as he put away his glass steel shield. A murderous aura gathered between his brows as he said slowly, Su Zimo, I didn't want to bother with you in Xiantian City. Since you're courting death today, don't blame me for it. TSK, TSK, TSK. Shui Yang's gaze was cold as he laughed sinisterly. There's no door to hell to begin with. you're the one who's courting death and barged in. Even Elixir Yang sect won't be able to protect you if Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth sect want to kill you. Chapter 422. Standing in midair, Su Zimo's gaze was as sharp as a knife. Lingering for a moment on Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang's faces, he suddenly reared his head in laughter and declared in a maniacal manner, "Do you think the two of you can kill me?" The cultivators in the cave abode were dumbfounded with shocked expressions. In Tianhuang mainland, Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth sect were publicly acknowledged super sects and were known for their strong frontal combat strength. Although the 5 heretical doctrines and 4 unorthodox groups were similar to the 2 sects in terms of reputation and status, however, in terms of combat strength, the disciples of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sects were still the strongest. Su Zimo made a name for himself with that bloody battle on the Long Street. Later on, he even destroyed Poison sect in the ancient battlefield single-handedly, and his reputation grew even more. However, in everyone's hearts, Su Zimo was still far inferior to the disciples of super sects with strong foundations such as Glass Palace and Malevolent Earth sect. Immediately after, Su Zimo's next sentence caused an uproar. "Pei Chunyu, Shui Yang, the two of you have tried to kill me multiple times. Don't think of leaving today. Die." Putting away the perfect meridian unlocking elixir, Su Zimo withdrew Blood Quencher from his storage bag slowly. With a flick of his wrist, the saber shone brightly with a blood beam and buzzed. Su Zimo truly doesn't know his place. That's right. One of them is the successor of Glass Palace and the other is the fiend heir of Malevolent Earth sect. He's just an unknown cultivator. What rights does he have to challenge those 2 great cultivators? He's a frog in a well after all. I reckon he hasn't even heard of sealers. Many cultivators shook their heads and looked at Su Zimo as though they were looking at an idiot. Typically speaking, sealers would not attack. However, if the successors of the 2 sects were in danger, they would definitely step forward. Therefore, even Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang did not dare to claim that they could kill the other party. If they were to kill them and force the sealers to attack, both sides would suffer losses and there would be no benefits for anyone. However, right now, Su Zimo declared that he was going to kill Pei Chunyu and Shui Yang in front of a sealer, causing a wave of mockery. The sealer of Glass Palace was a golden-robed old man. How interesting. A look of disdain flashed across the golden-robed elder's eyes. The sealer of Malevolent Earth sect, a skinny old man, curled his lips into a mocking smile. Ha 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 ha. As though he had just heard the funniest joke in the world, Pei Chunyu burst into laughter. Su Zimo, to think that you still can't understand the situation at this point. Today, I'll show you what the methods of an immortal sect are like. Kakik. Shui Yang laughed sinisterly. Su Zimo, it's a worthy death for you to die in the hands of the successors of the immortal and fiend sections. What shitty immortal sects and demonic sects? None of them can compare to the saber in my hand. Su Zimo hollered and 6 spirit meridians shone beneath his robes as he channeled his spirit energy to its limits. In a flash, he charged towards Shui Yang with his saber at an extremely fast speed. Even under such circumstances, Su Zimo still dared to make the first move with a torrential aura. You must have a death wish. Although Malevolent Earth sect had body-tempering techniques using malevolent chi as well, they were still weaker compared to top body-tempering sects such as Glass Palace and Overlord Palace. If Pei Chunyu had charged over, Shui Yang would definitely have retreated and widened the distance between them. However, when he saw that it was Su Zimo, Shui Yang relied on his superior cultivation realm and did not retreat or dodge. Gripping his bone spear with both hands, the malevolent spirit energy within his body burst forth and pierced towards Su Zimo who was in midair. Pust. In Shui Yang's hands, the bone spear drew a series of arcs in an extremely agile manner. Like a venomous snake, it pierced the void and let out a series of strange sounds. Many cultivators were secretly shocked and they saw that spear technique. Notwithstanding the power of Shui Yang's spear, that spear technique alone was enough to stun everyone present. Everyone felt that it was extremely troublesome and could only retreat. Swash! At the same time, Pei Chunyu moved. He was as fast as lightning and his eyes shone with a clear glazed light. With a chilling killing intent, he leaped and lunged towards Su Zimo's back. Pei Chunyu's plan was clear. If Shui Yang were to kill Su Zimo with a single spear, Shui Yang would be in a state where he had just expended his strength and had yet to recover his strength. He would definitely reveal an opening. He would then be able to take advantage of the opening and injure Shui Yang severely. Taking a step back, even if Shui Yang failed to kill Su Zimo, he could kill Su Zimo with ease and snatch away Su Zimo's storage bag. No matter what happened, Pei Chunyu would be the biggest winner. At that moment, he had yet to realize that he had missed out on another scenario, on the battlefield. There were layers of spear shadows and a malevolent aura spread. It was difficult to differentiate between the real and the fake. In midair, the spirit wings behind Su Zimo's back suddenly dissipated. Everyone was shocked when they saw that. In everyone's opinion, Su Zimo's only way out was to make use of the spirit wings behind him to escape immediately. Even so, he might not be able to escape from Pei Chunyu's pursuit. But now that Su Zimo's spirit wings had dissipated and he was falling without any support, it meant that there was no way for him to retreat and he could only choose to fight Shui Yang head-on. That single action caused a subtle change in the aura of the battlefield. Su Zimo descended from the skies with both hands wielding his saber. He was fearless like a heavenly god and had completely suppressed Shui Yang in terms of aura. When they saw that, the two spectating sealers' expressions changed slightly. Before they could think further, Su Zimo hollered, "Countercurrent." A gigantic saber descended from the skies. Splash! The blood-red light surged, and the sound of a tidal wave surged. The two sealers' expressions changed as they exclaimed, "Saber force. Something's not right." The golden-robed old man's expression changed as though he recalled something. He murmured softly, "That saber technique seems to be, calming 5 stances." The skinny old man spat out. Instantly, a piece of information from more than 10 days ago flashed through the minds of many cultivators. The Saber Mountain Spirit Sea had disappeared. After 1,000 years, another cultivator had obtained the Saber Emperor's inheritance. It was him. It was no wonder why Su Zimo disappeared for a period of time after the bloody battle on the long street and uprooted poison sect domineeringly upon his return. All of a sudden, there was a perfect explanation for everything. Everyone's doubts were dispelled. In the face of countercurrent, Shui Yang's spear technique was extremely crude and could not withstand a single blow. All the spear shadows dissipated instantly, revealing the true body of the bone spear. Clang! Blood Quencher struck the bone spear heavily and the blood beam surged with billions of lightning bolts, drowning and purifying the malevolent aura on the bone spear instantly. Suppression. It was an all-round suppression in terms of aura, saber technique, bloodline and strength. Shui Yang cried out in pain and the web between his thumb and index finger was torn, dripping with fresh blood. Instantly, the bone spear flew out of his hands and turned into a cold beam of light. With a poof, it pierced deep into the wall behind him and the end of the spear trembled incessantly. Crack! 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 Against the impact of that terrifying slash, the protection talisman on Shui Yang's body shattered instantly and he fell backwards, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He was severely injured with a single slash. Chapter 423. In reality, if not for the protection talisman on Shui Yang's body, Su Zimo's slash might have taken his life. Even so, Not only did that slash shatter the protection talisman, Shui Yang was also sent flying with injuries. When they saw that, the cultivators in the cave abode were in an uproar. This outcome was completely out of everyone's expectations. Nobody expected that the fiend heir of malevolent earth sect would not even be able to receive a single slash from Su Zimo. Perhaps part of the reason for that was because he had underestimated his opponent. However, the terrifying strength displayed by Su Zimo refreshed everyone's understanding of him once more. Who would have thought that the Saber Emperor's inheritance would be obtained by Su Zimo? Furthermore, he had even cultivated to the realm of force. The skinny old man who was initially watching by the sidelines had a change in expression and instinctively took half a step forward, wanting to interfere. However, right after, the skinny old man's gaze shifted. When he caught sight of the figure behind Su Zimo, he relaxed and retreated. Pei Chunyu had already arrived behind Su Zimo. The two of them were extremely close. At this distance, no cultivator of the same cultivation realm would be able to take on a Glass Palace disciple head-on without being disadvantaged. Furthermore, Su Zimo had just released Countercurrent and was at his weakest state. The power of force was extremely draining for Foundation establishment cultivators, and Su Zimo could not release his saber force continuously. Therefore, to the two sealers, Pei Chunyu's timing was impeccable and Su Zimo would either be dead or severely injured. Body like glass, clear inside and out, untainted and indestructible. Pei Chunyu's eyes were like glass as he chanted 16 words. With each rune, his aura would change. Towards the end, Pei Chunyu's body seemed to be shrouded in a mysterious glow that was flawless like glass and his aura reached its peak. Die! Pei Chunyu's black hair fluttered without wind as he arrived behind Su Zimo. With a holler, he swung his gigantic fist and smashed it down viciously towards Su Zimo's head. Pei Chunyu was wearing a pair of boxing gloves, a perfect spirit weapon. 5 streaks of spiritual light flashed with dazzling brilliance, illuminating the entire cave abode as if it were daytime. It was as though Pei Chunyu was holding a blazing sun in his palm that shone with a blinding golden light and smashed towards Su Zimo with a murderous aura. Su Zimo's gaze was distant as he stared at Shui Yang, who had already been sent flying. He seemed to be completely unaware of Pei Chunyu, who was charging at him from behind. Rumble. Suddenly, within Su Zimo's body, there was the sound of a terrifying tidal wave. It was accompanied by the sound of rolling thunder, causing one's heart to tremble. Pang pang pang. Su Zimo did not even turn his head as he channeled his bloodline. His large tendons trembled as he swung his saber in a backhand motion. The blood radiance was like a tidal wave as it landed heavily on Pei Chunyu's fist. Clang! The saber and the fist collided, causing an ear-piercing sound and sparks to fly in all directions. It was true that Su Zimo could not slash out saber attacks continuously. However, after attaining lesser mastery of the orifice-clearing section, his skin, flesh, tendons, bone marrow, organs and 7 orifices formed a major cycle. Just his bloodline and physique alone was strong enough. Pei Chunyu grunted dully and staggered in retreat with a startled expression. With every step he took, the soles of his feet left a clear footprint on the ground. The confidence in Pei Chunyu's eyes dissipated and turned into shock. He truly had not expected that Su Zimo would still have the strength to force him back after severely injuring Shui Yang with a single slash. Although he was not injured and his palm was merely throbbing in pain and trembling slightly, that was enough to shock him. This meant that if Su Zimo was in his peak condition, he would definitely not be a match for Su Zimo in a head-on clash. His outcome would not be much better than Shui Yang's right now. Instantly, countless thoughts flashed through Pei Chunyu's mind. At that moment, Su Zimo made use of the rebound force from Pei Chunyu's head-on clash to speed up once more and disappear from the spot. Su Zimo's figure streaked past like a galloping horse. He was so fast that a buzzing sound could be heard in the void. In almost the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had already arrived in front of Shui Yang. The situation changed instantaneously. Even the two sealers could not react in time, let alone the many Foundation establishment cultivators that were watching. Shui Yang was sent flying by Su Zimo's slash. When he saw that Pei Chunyu had already charged forward, he wanted to take advantage of the situation to retreat and consume an elixir before joining forces with Pei Chunyu to kill Su Zimo. However, the moment that thought crossed his mind, he heard the sounds of Su Zimo and Pei Chunyu clashing head-on. The next moment, his vision blurred and Su Zimo had already arrived before him. It was too fast. How could this be? Shui Yang was scared out of his wits and was scared out of his wits. Even if he was in his peak condition, he was definitely not a match for Su Zimo at this distance, let alone the fact that he was already injured. The moment Shui Yang opened his mouth and uttered a single word, Su Zimo's gigantic palm had already enveloped him, blocking his vision. Without his bone spear, it was too late even if he had spirit weapons in his storage bag. Shui Yang could only raise his arms instinctively, wanting to block Su Zimo temporarily and seize the opportunity to escape. Snap! Su Zimo did not give Shui Yang any chance at all. His palm landed on Shui Yang's arm and crushed it instantly. His bones pierced through his flesh, revealing bloody bone stubs in a shocking manner. Ah! Shui Yang shrieked tragically. The next moment, Shui Yang's voice came to a stop. Su Zimo closed in and grabbed Shui Yang's throat with one hand, lifting him up and using him as a shield. Shoo! Shoo! At the same time, a few bone spears arrived. When they saw that Shui Yang was already in Su Zimo's hands, they stopped their momentum hurriedly and the bone spears stopped in midair. Not far away, the skinny old man had already attacked with his bone spear, wanting to kill Su Zimo and save Shui Yang. However, he was still a step too late. At that moment, Shui Yang was in Su Zimo's hands and the skinny old man did not dare to act rashly out of fear of harming Shui Yang. Instantly, the situation was in a stalemate. Ever since the start of the battle, everyone had been holding their breaths instinctively and had already forgotten to breathe. It was only at that moment that the surrounding cultivators heaved a sigh of relief. Everyone looked at Su Zimo with a different gaze. Shui Yang was not an ordinary cultivator of malevolent earth sect, he was the fiend heir. Just like that, the fiend heir was gripped by Su Zimo by the throat. His face was purple and his eyes were bulging as his tongue stuck out slightly, unable to say a single word. Both of Shui Yang's arms drooped limply and his bones were broken, they were crippled. With his arms crippled, even if Shui Yang survived, his future accomplishments would not be great. Su Zimo, release him and we can put aside the feud between you and Malevolent Earth Sect for now. I can also spare your life. The skinny old man said slowly with a dark expression. Oh. Su Zimo raised his brow and laughed. The skinny old man continued, as a perfected Jin Dan, I'm a man of my word. Don't worry. What if I don't release him? Su Zimo's tone was indifferent as he asked with a fake smile. The skinny old man said coldly, if you don't release him, you'll definitely die today. Is that so? Su Zimo retracted his smile and replied indifferently, I hate being threatened the most in my life. Snap! There was a crisp sound. Su Zimo crushed Shui Yang's throat and tossed the corpse on the ground casually, as though he had done something insignificant. Chapter 424. Instantly, the entire cave abode fell silent such that one could hear a pin drop. Many cultivators were horrified as they looked at the corpse lying in a pool of blood on the ground in disbelief, speechless. It was way too ruthless. The fiend heir of Malevolent Earth Sect was killed just like that. Even though immortals and fiends had been on opposing sides since ancient times, even Pei Chunyu would not have dared to be so merciless with a sealer around. The moment the fiend heir was dead, the sealer would definitely strike. Everyone looked at Su Zimo as though they were looking at a dead man. Sealers were old men in their twilight years. However, even 8 Meridian Foundation establishment cultivators could not withstand the power of a sealer. The Jin Dan realm and Foundation establishment realm were on completely different levels. After consuming a single Jin Dan, one's life was no longer in the hands of the heavens and one's lifespan could be extended to 500 years. In terms of strength, it was a complete suppression. The wrath of a Jin Dan was not something a Foundation establishment cultivator could withstand. Many cultivators retreated slowly, trying their best to distance themselves from Su Zimo, afraid that they would be implicated. When they saw that, Pei Chunyu and the golden-robed old man from Glass Palace exchanged glances, both of them could see the joy in the other's eyes. The current situation was the best for them. Glass Palace would sit back and reap the spoils later. No matter which side won, Glass Palace would be the final winner. Good, very good. The skinny old man from Malevolent Earth Sect's expression darkened completely. Glaring at Su Zimo with a murderous look, the aura within his body turned increasingly terrifying and shuddering. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and wielded Blood Quencher, facing the skinny old man without losing out in terms of aura. He had once fought against the real perfected Jin Dan and even managed to kill the latter. At that time, Su Zimo had the help of Night Spirit and the Blood Bone Palm on his right hand. Coupled with the environment and external factors, he managed to kill a Jin Dan in his twilight years. In terms of true strength, Su Zimo was definitely not a match for perfected Jin Dan. Now, it wasn't as if he had no chance of winning. This was the ancient battlefield. The moment someone released the power of the Jin Dan realm, it would cause the ancient battlefield to reject them and cause dimensional tears to appear. In other words, if a sealer were to release his Jin Dan realm strength, he would only have a single chance to attack. As long as Su Zimo could survive, the one who would die would be the sealer. Die. The skinny old man lifted his foot and gently put it down. In an instant, the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. Under the watchful gazes of countless people, a gigantic fissure suddenly opened up on the ground. It extended continuously until it reached Su Zimo's feet in an instant. Whoosh! Spirit wings appeared and Su Zimo soared into the air. His hands formed a hand seal and his middle finger and thumb interlocked, forming a hand seal that contained endless power. Devil Vanquishing Seal. The crack on the ground was dark and deep. Suddenly, a murderous aura as black as ink gushed out, rolling and surging. It transformed into a huge palm that grabbed at Su Zimo in midair. The murderous aura surged and a black mist spread, causing the weather to change. The pitch-black palm resembled a ghostly claw that reached out from hell and could drag all living beings into it by force. Even the spectating cultivators who had retreated far away felt their hearts skip a beat when they saw that palm, let alone Su Zimo who was in the center of the battlefield. That was the power of the Jin Dan realm, it could crush everything. Boom! At the same time, a deafening sound echoed from above the cave abode. A gigantic golden palm descended from the skies, emitting endless golden light that could not be looked at directly. The patterns on the palm could be seen clearly and it carried with it a holy aura that prevented evil from invading. Its aura was frightening and it wanted to suppress all fiends. The spirit energy in Su Zimo's dantian was already pushed to its limits and his 6 spirit meridians surged with spirit energy. The reason why he chose the Fiend Suppression Seal was because it contained a holy aura that could suppress evil and was a natural counter to malevolent aura. Even so, the Fiend Suppression Seal alone could not match the spirit art released by a Jin Dan realm cultivator. Boom! When the two palms collided, a deafening explosion erupted. The two colors of gold and black intertwined and collided, creating a terrifying halo of energy that caused the entire cave abode to shake. Right in front of everyone, the golden palm paused for a brief moment before dissipating. As for the malevolent aura surrounding the black palm, it was clear that it had dimmed. Many cultivators were secretly shocked when they saw that. If the two of them were of the same cultivation realm, the divine power contained in the golden palm might have been able to suppress the skinny old man's spirit art completely. Clang! 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 After the two palms collided, the sharp sound of swords buzzing could be heard. 18 supreme-grade flying swords hovered in front of Su Zimo at the same time and shone brightly with spirit light. The 18 flying swords crisscrossed in midair, leaving streaks of sword scars as they formed a sword formation that was sharp and exuded an endless sword chi. Candlelight sword formation. Go! A gigantic sword-shaped disc was formed, buzzing and trembling as it charged towards the remaining gigantic black palm. The black palm opened up completely and grabbed the candlelight sword formation as though it wanted to blot out the skies. Poof! 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 Initially, the sword-shaped disc was still spinning continuously. However, after it was grabbed by the black palm, it came to a stop and let out a tragic cry. Boom! The sword formation dissipated and the 18 flying swords scattered in all directions. The malevolent aura of the black palm dimmed even more. Although the candlelight sword formation had dissipated, its terrifying power had already riddled the black palm with holes. The fiend's suppression seal and candlelight sword formation consumed a lot of spirit energy and were Su Zimo's trump cards as well. But now that Su Zimo had used both of his trump cards, the residual power of the sealer's spirit art was still present and was still terrifying enough to destroy all living beings. Swoosh! The black palm descended instantly and enveloped Su Zimo, clenching and tightening its fist. Su Zimo's figure was gripped in the palm of the black palm and a malevolent aura spread, engulfing him instantly. It was over. Although it was blocked by the fiend's suppression seal and candlelight sword formation, this was the power of the Jin Dan realm after all. Even if Su Zimo's body could withstand the grip of the black palm, the malevolent aura of the Jin Dan realm was enough to corrode his bloodline and kill him on the spot. On the other side, a tear appeared in the void behind the skinny old man and dragged him in with a shuddering aura. A dimensional tear. At the end of the day, the rules of the ancient battlefield were not to be violated. The skinny old man did not have a second chance to attack at all. Before the dimensional tear closed, the skinny old man's body was already torn into pieces and a blood mist spewed out into the void. There was nothing left of his corpse. A moment later, the dimensional tear closed slowly. Many people had conflicted expressions when they saw that. If not for the fact that he was targeted by the sealer, a cultivator as such would have been able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the young paragons of the major factions. He only has himself to blame. Who asked him to be so arrogant and reckless? He's definitely a genius that's hard to come by in 10,000 years to obtain the inheritance of the Saber Emperor. What a pity, sigh. There's nothing to pity. A fallen genius is no longer a genius and will eventually be forgotten by others. Exchanging a life for a life with the sealer is a worthy death for him. Some people looked regretful, some gloated and some shook their heads and sighed. Chapter 425. With a smile, Pei Chunyu was already prepared to make his move. The moment the black palm dissipated, he would rush forward to snatch Su Zimo's storage bag. But at this moment, the sound of surging waves suddenly came from the black palm in midair. It rumbled, was mighty, and had a terrifying momentum. Crack! 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 A thin crack appeared on the surface of the black palm, growing larger and clearer by the second. Swoosh! Through the pitch-black malevolent chi, a blood beam that flashed with lightning burst forth in a bedazzling manner. It split the black palm into two and a figure leaped out. Pust! When they saw that figure, everyone shuddered and their pupils constricted in disbelief. How is that possible? Pei Chunyu lost his composure and exclaimed. This figure was none other than Su Zimo, who had already fallen in everyone's hearts. Although his green robes were already corroded beyond recognition by the malevolent chi, although he looked wretched and his footsteps were light as he stumbled, his eyes were still clear. However, his eyes were still clear and bright. The battle intent emitted from his eyes did not decrease but instead increased. His entire body emitted a domineering aura that looked down on everyone. He was still alive. Against the full-powered attack of a sealer and the suppression of the Jin Dan realm, Su Zimo was still alive. This meant that a sealer had died for nothing. Malevolent Earth Sex forces in the ancient battlefield were almost completely wiped out. In reality, Su Zimo had already given his all to be able to withstand the attack of the sealer. Apart from the Fiend's suppression seal and candlelight sword formation, Su Zimo had even channeled his bloodline and channeled his strength to its limits, releasing countercurrent at the final moment when he was enveloped by the Black Palm. Although the saber had split the Black Palm in half and allowed him to escape, he was still injured. Furthermore, the malevolent chi of the Jin Dan realm that the skinny old man cultivated had already surged into his body wildly. Under normal circumstances, the malevolent chi of the Jin Dan realm was enough to destroy the heart meridians of any Foundation establishment cultivator and end their life. Unfortunately, Su Zimo's bloodline contained the violent power of thunder to begin with. It was the nemesis of malevolent auras and similar powers. Furthermore, even though Su Zimo did not dare to release his demonic chi and expose the fact that he was a demonic cultivator, Su Zimo did not dare to do so. However, his body contained a vast amount of demonic chi after all. Although he couldn't release it, the invasion of baleful aura immediately triggered a powerful backlash from the demonic aura. Moreover, Su Zimo's body was nourished by the essence of the dragons. Now, his physique had reached a terrifying and unfathomable level. The malevolent aura of the Jin Dan realm entered his body and was washed away by the power of thunder and lightning, the power of blood and chi, and the essence of the dragons. Before it could unleash the true power of the malevolent aura, it had already dissipated. Puff! Su Zimo spat out a mouthful of blood, his face paling slightly. Although he had survived, he was not in a good state. His body had suffered a strong impact, and his internal organs had been shaken. He had already suffered internal injuries. If the two sealers were to join forces, he would most likely be doomed. Unfortunately, there was no reason for the Glass Palace sealer to sacrifice himself to attack Su Zimo. Su Zimo leaned against Blood Quencher and panted slightly. Pei Chunyu narrowed his eyes and waited for an opportunity to strike. There were still a few malevolent earth sect cultivators left in the cave abode. Moving with venomous gazes, they had already surrounded Su Zimo. Su Zimo rested with his eyes closed, as though he was oblivious to everything that was happening around him. None of them noticed that Su Zimo's injuries were healing at a visible speed. Not only was Su Zimo's physique strong, his regeneration capabilities were even more frightening. Su Zimo, you don't even have the strength to attack. Fufu, if I were you and survived the hands of a sealer, I would have escaped from this place immediately. However, there's only a single reason why you're still here. You don't even have the strength to escape. Pei Chunyu was wary and did not dare to attack directly. He continued probing with a face full of smiles, pretending to be relaxed. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged and he did not even open his eyes, as though he did not hear anything. Seems like I was right. Pei Chunyu retracted his smile and said coldly, kill him. The moment he said that, the remaining Glass Palace and malevolent earth sect cultivators around him hollered and attacked one after another. Instantly, the cave abode shone brightly with spirit light. All of a sudden, two divine lights shone in the voids, even more dazzling and resplendent than the spirit lights of many spirit weapons. Those were Su Zimo's eyes. They shone brightly and were as sharp as sabers. Swash! Su Zimo's figure vanished from the spot. His saber flashed and sliced gently across the neck of one of the cultivators, causing blood to spray out. A cultivator died on the spot. Immediately after, Su Zimo slashed with a backhand slash on the arm guard of another Glass Palace cultivator. Snap! Even with the arm guard, it could not protect that person's arm. Against the crushing force, that person was sent flying and slammed heavily against the walls of the cave abode. He slid down slowly and his eyes dimmed gradually. Suzumo charged left and right, channeling his bloodline and releasing the saber technique of the sea calming 5 stances. Nobody could stop his massacre. Pei Chunyu. Suzumo broke through the obstacles and arrived before Pei Chunyu. Laughing loudly, he declared, "The reason why I'm staying here isn't because I don't have the strength to escape. It's because I want to take your life." Swoosh! Blood Quencher descended from the skies with a terrifying aura. Even though Suzumo could no longer release force in his current state, he could still sweep through everything with the power of his physique and bloodline. Clang! Blood Quencher collided with Pei Chunyu's fists. That slash was the vortex of the sea calming 5 stances that Suzumo released. Although it seemed ordinary, the saber technique contained a corkscrew and twisting power. Ah! Pei Chunyu retreated continuously and cried out in pain as a thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. Although he was protected by the perfect grade glove, the corkscrew and twisting power was transmitted to Pei Chunyu's arms and his sleeves exploded. Poof! Poof! Right in front of everyone, the muscles on Pei Chunyu's arms tore apart and a mist of blood burst forth. That was only the tear of his muscles. If Suzumo was in his peak condition, that slash could have crushed the bones in Pei Chunyu's arms. Let's go. Right then, the golden-robed old man strode forward and pulled Pei Chunyu back, tossing him towards the entrance of the cave abode and hollering. Even the sealers had thoughts of retreating. That lad is way too strong. He's truly a peerless top genius. His fortune is heaven-defying and he obtained the inheritance of the Saber Emperor. He has already accumulated enough strength, and unless it's the most outstanding paragons of Tianhuang mainland, no one is a match for him. Get away from this place, the further the better. Hide in a corner of the ancient battlefield and cultivate until the time limit is up before heading out. Geniuses like him are envied by the heavens and will definitely face a life and death calamity. It's extremely easy for him to die. Don't fight him head-on. The golden-robed old man instructed as he followed behind Pei Chunyu and sprinted towards the entrance of the cave. The golden-robed old man did not want to release the power of the Jin Dan realm until the final moment. Furthermore, the moment he released the power of the Jin Dan realm, he would definitely die. However, Suzumo might not die, trying to escape. Suzumo sneered and wielded Blood Quencher. He released Divine Steed Fleeting and chased after the two of them. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.